I'm just reading through chat right now, Gio, and it says, there's a lot to talk about this week. But I don't know, man. I thought nothing ever happens,
Nothing ever happens.
People die, but nothing ever happens.
There is a lot. Like, do we want to start with the Midwestern? No, of course not the Midwestern trad wife. I don't know. I've been listening to Chop Suey by System of a Down on repeat. Every time I cry when angels deserve to die. R.I.P. to a legend. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Like, what we're gonna, as you can guess, we're talking about Henry Kissinger. I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to his legacy, but I can see I'm doing the both sides of it. But truly, I mean, good. You take the floor on this one, Prude. You take the floor. There's a lot of things to talk about, but as we say, nothing happens.
As usual on Wednesdays, I'm driving home from church and I check my phone afterwards and I look and everyone's like, hey, I saw all the memes about, death playing with the claw machine and everyone's like, finally!
It's finally! Yeah.
Okay, I guess it finally did happen. So yeah, Henry Kissinger reposed last night. He died. He was 100 years old. They say that the secret to a good life is to outlive your enemies. So I guess Henry Kissinger had a pretty good life, but
he outlived a lot of enemies.
He outlived a lot of enemies, and he outlived a lot of Cambodians. But I think that ironically, I think out of all the people who had an interesting take about sort of like everyone politicizing deaths of famous statesmen, was Future Moldovan Citizen. He had a really good take where it's just like, these people will complain that Henry Kissinger is this like, disgusting war criminal, but they have no problem about how the Khmer Rouge killed millions of more people than any U.S. bombing ever did in Cambodia.
There was this one person that replied to, I think it may have been Moldovan or it may have been Patrick Casey, that said like, no, don't you realize like Kissinger bombing them actually caused Pol Pot to redact all of those people for some reason, even though it happened 5 years later. So I guess the collective trauma of Kissinger bombing Cambodia, that hyperstitionally created the atmosphere for Pol Pot. I joke. I mean, you can say that U.S. foreign policy led to Pol Pot, or the failure in Vietnam. But it's like, come on, like, does Pol Pot not bear any responsibility?
No orthodox leftist, like any traditional progressive, none of them complain about the Khmer Rouge, and none of them, and they'll make endless lists of apologia for the Holodomor or any sort of communist killing. So it's like, I would request that one takes the plank out of their own eye, but they're not going to. But Jim Baker is almost dead. George Kennan died earlier in this century, and Henry Kissinger has now died at 100 years old. And I think that it is indicative that an era of sort of the Cold War style Realpolitik styles of balance of power and international relations, that era has sort of come to an end. And some will make the claim that, well, what's collapsing, or what class of things are collapsing. And I think that there is a definitive tell between the pedagogy, the old school, and the personnel that existed of Henry Kissinger's days in the State Department, within national security, within diplomacy, that does not exist in today's world. You can hate the guy, you can love the guy, you can have whatever take you want on him, but for what it's worth, the guy was a very competent, realist statesman that does not exist very much anymore. And those that do exist these days are usually ignored for the greater promise of liberal hegemony, the name of democracy, the name of balance of power, for ideological reasons. And I think that it's kind of clear that, what's kind of left of that might be the Victoria Nuland types. And even then, I don't know how well they're holding on. I just saw Morning Joe yesterday with ironic, and I forget that he's married to the daughter of Brzezinski, also another famous Cold Warrior and diplomat during Jimmy Carter's years. Funny how all these people just incestuously find themselves in the media. But it does really give us an indication that sort of this class of people, of the Foreign Service officer, is not there anymore. And that I think it does show with respects to our foreign policy and how we conduct ourselves in the world stage. It's just a very different battle. But I've got a phone call from my doctor coming in, so if you could just take over here, Gio, real quick.
Okay, yeah. Well, what I wanted to say is that it's funny because I think the class of foreign diplomat is quite different in the American experience. I remember reading this very long article about foreign private military contractors in Iraq and Afghanistan. I believe this company was in Afghanistan, and this one journalist said that the British PMCs were very like equipped because they knew the more about the culture. They heard stories about Kipling in school about the Afghans, whereas the Americans had very much of a brash, isolated sort of approach. And I think like the sort of the educated diplomat is very much a creature of the British Empire, where they're sort of doing anthropological studies on the side. They're learning about local religions. They're bringing scholars with them. I mean, that's a very romantic picture of the British Empire. But I feel like Kissinger, there was a period within American diplomacy that at least carried on the sort of gentleman, educated bureaucrat, foreign dignitary that I think Kissinger was the last of. Whereas nowadays, I mean, you have these like incompetent, evil clowns, like what Thomas 777 said, where it's like, it's almost a shock tactic to send people like Hillary Clinton throughout the world and to do these like clownish and buffoonish displays. And I think that this is why the end of Kissinger is really the end of an era of, and this goes, I mean, it goes to a greater sort of apparatus of the way that the American empire structures itself as a pure postmodern empire. It's almost as if they don't have a need to care about the way that other quarters of the world works, or the way that other peoples of the world operate, or the way they think and the way that they understand politics and the world stage. America is everything. America is the cultural hegemony. So therefore, why should we care about the Chinese, the Russians, or the Uzbekanis or the Saudis think and feel and how they understand themselves? Who cares? Because it's America, So in a way, the tone deafness of the foreign dignitary core in America is indicative of the fact these people, I mean, they're soulless bureaucrats and they're technocrats. They don't really have that spark of education. And you could say that, the British did a fair bit of ethnic cleansing and so forth. And the British weren't exactly wholesome Chungus. But at the end of the day, it's like the people that complain about the British stealing monuments or stealing artifacts. Like if those artifacts weren't around, I mean, if the British Museum wasn't around, I mean, those artifacts would be gone, So it's funny how the Anglo man, values the preservation of world cultures, even though they themselves back in the day felt themselves to be the superior culture. That was one good thing that Mark Stein said about the British. He goes, they knew who the superior culture was to them, but therefore they could appreciate the other, So, but I feel like Kissinger is the last of the long line of dignitary, not to excuse the evil that he's done in the world. I mean, I'm sure Kissinger's probably in hell right now. But Richard Nixon is in heaven, okay. But I think that Kissinger is the sort of the last guard of Pompeii of an older understanding of foreign politics and a type of caliber of people that were genuinely interested in world affairs and were genuinely interested in a form of a form of intrigue when it comes to the world stage. Nowadays, I mean, these people, like, can you say the same about Victoria Nuland? Not really. I mean, this woman is driven by total hatred and total evil and
ethnic resentment.
And ethnic resentment, of course, yes. But that's what I mean. I think that the sort of gentleman scholar version of a foreign dignitary, that is a thing of the past. That is a movie Hollywood image nowadays. It's become a sort of template. It's become a part of what's the Harrison Ford? It's become a part of the Indiana Jones. Like they always have like the scholar dignitary, right? That's it's gone. It's over. And Kissinger was the last one, and now we're dealing with less than savory and less than intellectual people, unfortunately. However much you can say that Kissinger was evil, and he was pretty much evil, and he, there was something
How
interesting.
much we can say he's evil, but oh, by the way, he's evil.
Yeah, no, but it's funny. It's something that Russians with Attitude said. I forget who runs it. I think Dima runs it. He said, that Kissinger didn't really have a burning hatred of the American population the way that current bureaucrats do. And so that alone, that like neutral position of just trying to like find the best position for whoever he was working for in the American state, like that alone is like leagues above nowadays, where people that work for the American government have a burning hatred of their own population. And so make of that what you will, right? Not to say I'm excusing Kissinger, of course, but I generally think that. But then again, you see these leftoids like freaking and gloating, and sorry, Kirill runs the Russian Attitude account. You see these leftoids gloating and doing this stupid like Oliver Stone, Howard Zinn nonsense. It's like things are a bit more nuanced than that. Even Thomas77 said this.
Yeah,
today.
I said this last night, where I was genuinely expecting way more of the reiteration, since we've had this.
I thought Garbage Ape was going to come out of retirement.
So did I. I really thought Garbage Ape was going to show his fat, protruding, ugly head, balding and shining, nipples protruding, very disgusting. I thought he was really going to go out of his way to just like regurgitate the case against Henry Kissinger like it's 2002 and we're talking about neoconservatism again and how evil Henry Kissinger was and why we need like progressive Zionism in order to eradicate Islam to save the West and its new enlightened atheist state.
Zionism
that didn't happen.
That
didn't happen. What a shame. This could have been Garbage Eight's great return to Twitter, but rip bozo. But I mean, with respect to this, he
could have posted the pig poop balls.
He really could have. But I was genuinely expecting more of this sort of low, like grug-brained, knee-jerk reaction. Everyone's going to do their best Christopher Hitchens impression about why he's evil and why he's going to hell.
Why did Hitchens think he was evil?
Mainly for like war crimes.
Oh yeah, but Hitchens was a neocon that supported the
yeah,
surge.
I know that. This is the great irony is that like all these early aughts new atheist progressives were just, listen, man, we can get on board with this like bombing Middle Eastern children thing. We're just not going to do it in the name of Jesus.
I'm sure Richard Dawkins loves bombing brown Muslims. I mean, I know Pat Condell really loved bombing Muslims, but yeah,
but
anyways.
I think what is really important to consider is that he's not going to be. He's held in an advisory role even after he officially left government. I mean, we sent him to, if I recall correctly, we sent him to China earlier this year.
How? I don't know. Can he even walk on the plane?
Yeah,
they probably carried him on the plane.
Yeah. Well, China mourns him. But when did he visit? He visited not too long ago. Yeah, earlier this year. July 2023.
I believe he visited that smackhead in Kyiv too.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah.
Chinese President Xi Jinping told Henry Kissinger that old friends like him will never be forgotten, striking an easy tone in a meeting on China's capital Tuesday, July 21st, 2023. Just earlier this year, the man that is responsible, I mean, it's been 50 years since we did the whole trip to China, open things up, that was Zhou Enlai, but like, it illustrates that we don't have the foreign policy class is not there. And I thought that this was really a good point when you saw, even with Trump, and Biden is just an equal example. You've got all these old, stodgy bureaucrats that think, well, we can still fight the Cold War. Yeah. This is the point that Thomas makes that I really like him on, where he's just like, the United States government is really good at doing one thing and one thing only, and that's fighting the Cold War.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And so now your great architect of sort of this foreign policy that you've instructed, sort of this balance of powers. We have to remember his, bachelor's thesis is focusing on like Spengler and Kant and Arnold Toynbee. His doctrinal thesis in the 50s, right, is about, Castlereagh and Metternich and sort of this uneasy peace in 1812 to 1822. And, it's one of his greatest geopolitical influences. Now that class of people has receded into the ether. It is all but a burning memory. And I think that it really does illustrate, I think, there's a shift. An era has ended. And so I think that it's going to be very difficult for America to have sort of an old, stable relation. I mean, we're going to have our relations with China as it is, but I do think that it's just a different class of people. And the USG is going to be, and has been for some time, in a very weird transitional phase of conducting its imperial business. And some parts of it, it's really good at. Other parts are a little more heavy-handed and a little bit, like a lead balloon. But time will only tell. But he is gone, and he has reposed. And Daniel Robinson for 199, I'll just answer it here. Yes, I have read his magnum opus, Diplomacy. I have read his PhD thesis. We read a little bit of his work on this show with his stuff on Spangler 20.
Yeah.
And I've also read World Order, his 2014 book. So him and George Kennan and Metternich are some of my biggest academic and philosophical influences when I understand foreign policy, alongside John J. Mearsheimer. So I guess I have a more begrudging respect for him, and a man whose intellect I truly do appreciate. I guess I'll be the unabashed Kissinger stan today. I don't know,
Well, I mean, it's funny. I've seen like the usual divide on the E-right. The BAP people are very much pro Kissinger now. Spurgler acolyte leading the charge, and then of course you have that other rivalry of the E-right that is very much against Kissinger because they have their own more scholarly types that are pointing it out. But I don't know. Like I don't know the position of Kissinger. Like, for example, people say that opening up China was a mistake, but then there's other scholars that say that China would have been opened and would have become maybe not a peer rival, but would have at least become an economic powerhouse because they had the position geographically, the population, the certain steps that the kind of Chinese Communist Party was making at the time, that it would have inevitably been the case that huge swaths of the Chinese population would have been lifted out of poverty eventually. I don't know. What do you feel about the China question when it comes to Kissinger? Like, did he screw up, or was it almost inevitable and he just sort of detected the way that the future was going to go, that China was going to be maybe not a peer, but certainly a bigger player on the world stage, especially after the Soviet Union dumped them? That was a huge loss because Moscow basically just told them to F themselves. And that was a huge thing. The border dispute in the 60s, that the Americans had to get involved. Because of course,
not to mention, go back even further. I mean, relate to U.S. or not U.S., but Soviet Chinese policy during the Second World War. I mean, Chinese technically giving money to both the communists and the nationalists, but it would always pull back enough money after Chiang Kai-shek could, buy himself some breathing room. I mean, Stalin's War talks about this, and it's a fantastic read, sort of understanding Soviet policy towards China in World War II, because there's the Manchurian Railway that they're all particularly interested in. And then, of course, afterwards, once communism sort of wins in 1949 under sort of this Maoism understanding of communism with the Chinese, you really begin to see this ideological block hit geopolitical reality, because you have concerns.
When was
now that
Mao's ascendancy, during World War II or after World War II?
He was the leader of the communists and fought for the communists in World War II, and would lead on in after the war ends, quote unquote. The Chinese Civil War continues until Chiang Kai-shek and them flee for Taiwan and Formosa in 1949. But no, I mean, the Sino-Soviet split is a huge issue with respects to Soviet imperialism, the geopolitical reality of the situation. How are we going to formulate our own policy? If I'm looking at how do I deter sort of the idiot, and again, you have to consider the Kennan aspect of it too, right? We have this world communism thing. This has to be contained. The idea is that you're fighting an ideological religiosity battle as much as you are a material one with guns and bullets and missiles. And so when we see this too with the Soviets, especially early on from the 1920s to the 1950s, is infiltration, subversion, a popular front. We have to support all things. You can't just be a socialist. You have to be a communist. And so, I mean, Kennan is, writing, of course, the famous Mr. X letter, that gets published in Foreign Affairs while he's taking his time working in the State Department. And that sort of is the foundation for U.S. foreign policy towards the Soviet Union. And so when you see an ideological and very public rift, I don't see why you wouldn't try and take advantage of that and turn one of the most populous nations on earth, especially at the time, and still is one of the most populous countries on earth, the Chinese, against the Soviets, at least, or to open them up to the West. At the time, I see the logic in it, and I think the mistake has always been, the mistake with a lot of American foreign policy is the follow through. What did we do? Well, we industrialized a global superpower and rival that, takes advantage of our universities, steals our intellectual property, our so-called allies like Israel give them our technology, and we don't do anything about them operating extraterritorial police stations on our own country and borders. The same with Canada. And so the mistake has always been the follow through, like the First Nations first preferred nation status when it comes to trade. And we've witnessed just a giant sucking sound out of there, to a point where in 2008, Henry Kissinger wrote in the Chicago Tribune, globalization's got problems. But I mean, like, I think it's kind of clear that we're never going to fully retreat back to like Little England, or like we're not going to retreat back to 1920s America, where it's like we're not fucking with the world, right? We can mess with South and Central America, but we're not messing with the world. I do think what might come from this, though, is a really, and he was arguing in 2008, it's like, listen, like you have to balance a globalized marketplace and balance of power with an industry that you need for national defense. And if you can't balance that, you're going to have more problems. And it's always been interesting to listen to these more bureaucratic political classes, because they'll say things like, even Richard Haass in 2014, former, Council of Foreign Relations president, former advisor, and I think he was a diplomat for George W. Bush, George Jr. And he wrote a book in 2014 called Foreign Policy Begins at Home. And it was basically like the neoliberal version of like, hey, how do we address the questions that Trump addresses in 2016? But he addresses 3 key issues, which is manufacturing, immigration, and education, alongside getting our fiscal house in order. None of those issues have been addressed at all. At all.
No.
I mean, Trump and Biden are trying to do the whole reshoring thing, but it will take years until I think we're at capacity. A mutual friend of ours, Huntsman, has talked about sort of the ongoing crisis of supply chains. Supply chains that are convenient and easy are often not very anti-fragile. So, I mean, if America wants to reposition itself into, say, being capable of a wartime footing, or being capable of having the national energy, like with Eisenhower and Sputnik, right? The National Defense Education Act, right? Like we're going to focus now more on STEM. We're going to focus away from the classics. We're going to get the best and brightest to do these things. We're not there. And there's a lot of domestic problems, ranging from immigration to a anti-American civilizational suicidal ideology that runs supreme in college campuses and in America all over the place. And what's worse is that we export it everywhere, because America's largest export is culture. It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Did you see that video of the, not that I have any sympathy for this teacher, but that, Jewish high school teacher that went to the pro-Israel rally, and and here's the thing, to those students, and most of them are not European, right? You saw that video, Prude?
I did see the rioting and stuff.
Yeah, they were tearing the school down. Yeah, like here's the thing. They really care about relations of Gaza and Israel? No, they don't. They don't, right? We know who they hate. They hate, it's sort of like an excuse to, chimp out and to riot and to I mean, they really, it's probably some form of anti-white animus there that they code from this pro-Israeli teacher. And so, but you see that, right? And you see like the demographics of for example, high schools here in Ontario, where like only 10% of the kids are of European descendancy, European descent. And, it's like, yeah, that's like, the thing is, there's a lot of people, there's certain, there's always this debate where like there's certain segments of the right wing that are like, well, it's over and you have to adjust differently. And it's like, this sort of black pill line, right? But
yeah.
But then again, it's like, you always see people going after those posts, right? That you just have to accept the demographic reality. And we always go after these people, right? But at the same, and you don't want a black pill, but like at the same time, I mean, it's a hard argument to make against that, because demographically, I mean, it is like, what are you going to do? Like you were saying, like, is America going to become more isolationist? Is the West going to become more isolated? No, I mean, maybe like
every bureaucrat in the West, including both in America but also in Europe, right? Like their idea is that, okay, overpopulation is not the problem. It's going to eventually be as a certain man had once said, who's now off Twitter, you know, the fuck rate's gone. You know, all of the West is dying. Billions must be born. So that means billions must be imported. And even Peter Zeihan talks about this, and he's just like
who is also off Twitter now. Did you see that?
Who's also is he off Twitter?
Yeah, he said I can't take it anymore.
Oh well, well, I hope he still makes enough money from his books to afford his Truvada. But I mean, it really does illustrate like their whole logic, their whole modus operandi is just like, well, screw nationalism, screw birth rate, screw this. We're just going to import the third world, and it'll all be fine, and Europe will somehow survive, which it won't. And I really do think that
it'll cease to be European, though. That's the thing. It won't be, you know. I mean, this is like old school, you know, 2015. But anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, it is right. But I mean, again, nothing new under the sun, as the sultry says. But like, I just feel like it's a really big deal when it comes to where the bureaucratic and PMC zeitgeist is going. And so, you know, they're playing this really dumb experiment where it's just like, hey, you know,
only we can be us. Yes,
only exactly. We can be us, but anyone can be you. You know.
Yeah.
It's a hard reality. Absolutely. Oh, Zion quit. He quit Twitter today. Well,
he'll be back.
He'll be back.
Most is like, you'll be back, and you. But that's what I mean. Like it is. People. I mean, there is an argument to be made that, you know, perhaps Kissinger is like foreign policy directly correlated to all of this, but really did it. You know what I mean? Like it's. You know, I mean, it's the same thing with the, you know, it's funny, like the sort of leftist Howard Zinn reading of history about like the wholesome Chungus post-colonialist regimes getting bombed by America, or America supporting fascism, when the reality is that America supported quite a bit of those post-colonialist regimes at the time. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard.
I mean, I talked about this in that interview with Mr. Nguyen. I was recent. I'll just shield this here. It just became publicly available. I put it on my community tab. I was interviewed by a guy named Chuang Nguyen, and he was talking about. We talked about Joseph Soprin, which was fun because I agreed to this interview before the conflict in Israel popped off. And so now I have to talk about Joe Soprin in Israel for like an hour. Really entertaining, to say the least. But
what was Kissinger's opinion? Well, we'll get to Kissinger's opinion on Israel, maybe. Yeah.
Well, we can just check the community notes under the ADL tweet. But no, what was really entertaining about it was that with respects to what Soprin was writing about back in the 80s, we're talking like 40 years ago. Joe Soprin was basically saying, listen, we have this culture of alienism. We're not allowed to have a nationalism of ourselves. But he was talking about this alienism as this like overreactive response to what Dr. Gottfried would call it, what, the label of Course for Crusade, the anti-fascism. And so he's just like, we're so afraid of quote unquote fascism. You know, we've supported every like communist leftist revolutionary thing against like Rhodesia, against South Africa. We have found ourselves on the same side as the Soviet Union. Iran,
Iraq, they supported Saddam along with the Soviets.
Yeah, along with
because God forbid they support the revolutionary Islamic guard of Ayatollah Khomeini. But anyways, I can't really be that pro Iranian. That'll probably get me in trouble. But anyways,
it just illustrates. I think that this alienism, this love for other, will kill us. And I mean that's blatantly obvious.
Saying this in the 80s. This is like classic.
He wrote this in the National Review. Like, if there's one piece of Joe Soprin that you should read Notes for the Reactionary of Tomorrow. Joe Soprin wrote this in 1985, so almost 40 years ago. And every red pill that you and I take for granted was written in the pages of the National Review 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And again, he got canceled, got screwed over.
My parents were married in 86. This is from 85. So
my parents got married in 89. And so it's just like, but yeah, like, my folks were in high school and this thing was written, and it's just, I wish I read it sooner, it's a great article. But yeah, I'll leave it there. We've been going on for like 30 minutes. Welcome everyone to the Digital Archipelago, episode 68. Where Prude gets his last hurrahs before we have to talk about a disgusting Canadian sex show next episode.
Hello,
everyone.
Episode 69.
I hope you're here.
No, it's going to be amazing.
Enjoy yourselves.
I think season 2 would be better to cover, but season 1's groundbreaking. So
I already watched it. Have my notes.
oh my god, you gone through it already?
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about
I talked about it in confession. I was like, I had to watch this for what I do on the internet, father. I don't feel good about it.
You know that guy still runs a piercing shop in Vancouver?
Oh man.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll get to it.
Does he along with his piercing shop, is he offering like monkeypox vaccinations at his store? Like,
maybe. But season 2,
you can just see I'm waiting. Someone on the replay will be like, "This is the moment where Prude's like heart broke into a million pieces, right there."
Oh man. It's gonna be amazing. But anyways, so yeah, this is episode 68. I can't believe it's 68. But oh, only Prude can make Geosodiac work. Yeah. So Kissinger. Well, that is interesting because Kissinger was critical of the foreign policy towards Israel as well. So I don't know. Is he like? It's funny how the political left, as much as people accuse the right wing of thinking about issues through memes.
Yeah.
The left, they don't really have memes per se. They do have a form of memetics, but it's not the same memetics as the right wing. I talk a little bit about this in my book. They do have a memetics in the sense of that, like, this is the evil American figure. This is sort of like, all of these like MB kids with pronouns in the bio with the Palestinian flag and with like, Pikru Avies. They have this like weird, like cultural kitschified version of boomer truth history, but like left boomer truth history that comes from like Oliver Stone and Howard Zinn and Noam Chomsky. And like Kissinger is like this kind of like Richard Nixon, how like The Simpsons and shows like that have like memed Richard Nixon into being like the archetype of evil. Kissinger is like the archetype of evil throughout all time, and he slaughtered millions and millions and millions and the millions of third world. Sorry, I had to do that. I'm not making a joke. He did slaughter millions of people, but you know where that comes from, right, Prude?
Yeah.
And the millions he might be the Democrat nominee in the future. You never know. Those who know I'm referring to The Rock when he used to, millions of The Rock's fans.
I know.
He was a Republican back in the day. He went to the Republican National Convention. Did you know that, Prude?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
He was. What year was it? Like 2000, like 90? No, it was 2000 something.
It was
right?
2000. Yeah, it was when Bush was there. Yeah,
it's when Bush was there. Yeah, and now he calls himself a self-described centrist. I mean, he, there was a whole TV show about him not too long ago where it's like he's running for president. Like this is how you know the show was made for like the 2020 COVID political era, where it's like, The Rock is running for president. We're going to tell this like story about his life or whatever, and it's just like,
you know what's funny? Here's a little kiss. I don't know if it's true or not, but it would make a lot of sense. Me and Academic Agent could probably do a video on this if he's listening. Did you know that Dave Meltzer, I don't agree with his analysis. I think he's got his biases, but he's run the Wrestling Observer newsletter for like 40 years, right? Since the mid-'80s, right? And he said that Henry Kissinger was an avid subscriber to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. That Kissinger, apparently his favorite wrestler was Ric Flair. I don't know if this is true, but it would make a lot of sense if Kissinger viewed foreign policy as professional wrestling. Think of it this way, Prude. It's amazing. It's brilliant. Did you ever consider the pro wrestling angle of Henry Kissinger?
No, I did not. It makes total sense. In the relations to international politics, you must maintain a certain level of kayfabe.
I remember when I saw Flair in the Cow Palace against against Terry Funk, and it was one of the greatest matches ever. I knew I had to open up China after I saw Flair and Funk. That would be amazing. He saw like the Flair versus Terry Funk Iron Man match, and he's like, "Yep, this is how we have to do our policy towards China." It does make a lot of sense though if he was a pro wrestling fan.
We
But
cannot break the kayfabe.
oh man,
Surely Afghanistan will make for a very great heel on the world stage.
yeah,
Saddam must go from the ring. It must be done.
Saddam. No, because when you think of it, the Iraq War, Saddam did the biggest like forced heel turn out of all time. Same with Bin Laden. Did one of the greatest heel turns of all time. Right? He was on the cover of Time magazine in the 80s as a revolutionary, and in 2004 he was again on the cover of Time magazine as the heel. It's almost as if they announced his heel turn in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. So, hopefully Academic Agent doesn't steal my takes here, but I wouldn't mind if he does. It doesn't matter.
Secretary Clinton, you have to understand, you have to actually give Gaddafi the potato.
You have to potato him. They really did potato Gaddafi.
Well, yeah,
Gaddafi
he died awful. An awful fucking death. And now Libya is a shithole, and
he thought
the human trafficking capital
of
the world.
Yeah. He thought it was a work when it was a shoot. You can like see it in Gaddafi's eyes, that video. He thought it was a work, but it wasn't. It was a shoot. So, anyways, no, what I was going to say about Kissinger is that the left has a very skewed picture of Kissinger because they hate Israel now with an intensity, which is fine, obviously. I mean, what Israel's doing is atrocious, but it's like Kissinger was also like, a critic of Israeli foreign policy as well. Like he explicitly warned the Israelis, I believe in the 80s, or was it the 70s? Or no, I think it was after the Yom Kippur War. He like explicitly warned him, was like, if you push too hard, the world's not going to like you anymore. And, I mean, you know more about this than I do, Prude, but, but was Kissinger, Jules Roy, was Kissinger pro-Israel, though? Could you describe him as pro-Israel?
Kissinger is most notably known with the negotiations between Israel and Egypt in the Yom Kippur War in the 1970s. Yeah. I mean, that's really the big turning point of Middle Eastern history, because where do you get out of that? I mean, you get the Egyptian recognition of Israel, and then you sort of see the establishment of American foreign policy in the Middle East being like, listen, here's $1 billion, here's $1 billion, get the hell out of my hair for a few years, and if you want to have a war again, we can talk later.
We have to focus on Asia right now. We can't do this. Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, no, he plays a very famous role in this, and I mean, in his death, of course, that was he had also famously said during like the Nixon tapes, there was a recording that came out, I want to say 10, 20 years ago, where he was advising President Nixon that helping Jews leave the Soviet Union to Israel is not America's best interest with foreign in the Middle East. And people got him in trouble for that. And I mean, the Council of Foreign Relations, like everyone can just, I get it. The Council of Foreign Relations.
Oh yeah.
The WEF.
The Alex Jones code word.
Very valid. Very
Council
valid.
Of Foreign Relations.
You can give him, but it's bad.
Why did he say that was a bad policy from Jews in the Soviet Union to defect to Israel? Because that would.
It was just not an objective of American foreign policy. We shouldn't be helping Jews leave the Soviet Union.
Oh, I see. But also that would severely that would have also tampered with the détente they had with or at least the fragile détente they had with the Soviet Union at the time, if I recall. So, I mean, Kissinger, he really was a creature of whatever was pragmatic, whether that pragmatism led to very negative outcomes or not. I mean, you'd figure like even Kissinger, like shelving his own ethnic loyalties, I mean, towards the Middle East. I mean, because people don't realize America was a lot less pro-Israeli back in the day, even certainly under Nixon, than nowadays under the neocons of today. So, I mean, I think like there's a lot of reasons why the pro-Israeli thing became so prominent in America during like the 90s and 2000s. I think a lot of it probably had to do with the last gasp of like moral majority Protestant Christian conservatism that bled into the neocon thing. Is that, you think that's correct, Prude, or I don't know? Like they were at their wits' end, and so they had to find something. You know what I mean? So
there's man, that's a whole
Yeah,
bucket.
that could be a whole stream on its own.
That's a whole can of worms. I mean, I've done like 4 or 5 hours of stuff with a gentleman named Hitman discussing this stuff, where he was. We talked about the legacy of Sykes-Picot. We talked about British New Israelism and sort of this concept of that the Britons are descendants of some of the lost tribes of Israel.
Oh yeah.
And then of course this happens with Schofield and the Schofield Bible, which has its own problems because it came with things like what's the word I'm looking for? Pre-packed sermons, this whole dispensationalism stuff. I mean, I would really recommend people, if you want a good article that describes this, it's called The Untold Story of Christian Zionism's Rise to Power in the United States by Whitney Webb. I would recommend that.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
George Bagby did a whole hour-long plus narration of this entire article. Go listen to it. Go read it. It is going to give you far more explanatory power than I can right now. But I highly recommend that people listen to it. It's well worth your time, because again, I'm not a dispensationalist. You're Roman Catholic. I'm an Orthodox Christian. We both know that Israel is the church, not some nation state that arose by deceit, terrorism, and the death of their own people in 1948 by black, compromat and subversion. That is not the Israel that we've historically recognized as Christians. But again, if they want to do what they want and bring about their antichrist, I mean, again, I'm not a supporter of it. Never will be. But it is illustrative of a certain cause there. And it is funny, I just to sort of maybe segue out of the Kissinger discussion, is that I wrote this title, I made it last night, looking towards the end. Why are people so apocalyptic? I had no idea that when I would write that, a couple hours later, Henry Kissinger would die. Yeah. But I was talking to you, Gio, before we went on the air, sort of in the quote-unquote green room. I was listening to an old stream from like Pat Casey's that was about the whole Scott Adams thing, where he was just like, you got to get the hell away from these people.
Yes,
and there's no fiction.
There's no fiction.
It was from February of this year. And I was just like, oh man, I thought that was like a lot further back in my timeline of crap that happened this year. Like January was the Chinese spy balloon instance where some F-35 shot it down after like weeks of floating around and people not doing anything. We've got all these Trump indictments. We have the elections. Like it's just, this year feels like it went by incredibly quickly.
It did.
You? What about you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was pretty busy this year, writing and the GF and other things, like when I turned 30, I thought it was over, man. I thought it was done for, So it's been quite an interesting year. But I do think, I wrote at the beginning, or rather I wrote the beginning of the year, I wrote that article on acceleration and 2022 as the year that things changed, but it seems that 2023 has like kept with that trend, right? Because there was a lull where people were mostly focused on Ukraine. Then this happened a month or two ago, and with Israel, and it seems that next year, it doesn't even feel though like there's an election that's going to happen. Trump is sort of out of the stage a little bit. Maybe that's just my perception, but it seems that like it doesn't feel like, I remember in 2016, 2015, you could feel that there was, it was going to be something big, but 2024, I don't know. I think like, again, there's a form of hypernormalization going on where we can't fathom an alternative. And so whatever happens is going to happen. I mean, unless something does dramatically happen with Trump, where, like, for example, say they prevent him from even running because of his legal problems, or what's funny?
We talked about that a couple of weeks ago on the Old Glory Club, where they had the case in Michigan and one in Minnesota, and they're using, again, this is an underlying theme of the American political system, regardless of the parties or whatever. If you are looking at the laws that they're suing him under, they're all laws with respects to Reconstruction. And we see this as a through line in American politics, is when immigrants come in and when others that, that they do their based Sherman posting or whatever,
Oh,
like they have to
God.
identify with the...
Old Glory Club got hit with a few Sherman posters recently.
Oh yeah, we did, but we also did that on purpose. But I mean, Doug the Intern is a great gonzo shit poster, and we love Doug what he does on Twitter.
But Doug, remember, you have to block the doggos whenever you see them. Block the doggos. The NAFO dog, you have to block them.
He knows.
Okay, good.
We beat him with a sock full of quarters. He knows his lesson.
He gets an extra donut from the stale donut from the pile this week.
Absolutely.
So,
for those who don't know, Doug the Intern, he's a real man, but he does go through a lot of crap. But I think a lot of people aren't prepared. But what I'm saying is that there's this through line of Reconstruction arguments where Reconstruction in America is like edgy, like alt-righters being like, it didn't happen and I wish it happened more. So you see this with liberals where they're like, Reconstruction never ended and we should have reconstructed the South till every last Southerner was killed off the ballot. And
that famous Mystery Grove tweet, because it didn't resemble the Khmer Rouge. That's why
I mean, it's basically it. Oh, well, I'll pause real here. So Mr. Spasticus Autisticus became a channel member. Thank you so much. He also gifted 10 to random people. I appreciate that, good sir. And Kate J is telling me to make some frog stickers for the members. You guys get to see all the gaming stuff that gets hidden behind the paywall, and you guys get to see videos early. So well done. Thank you, Spasticus. Nice. I appreciate that. But I mean, like, there's all these Reconstruction laws that they're using, like insurrection, these old civil rights acts from like the late 1860s and 70s.
Oh, they're reviving them for chunks.
But I mean, again, this is what they view him as, this existential threat to democracy. We saw this when the Economist magazine was like the greatest threat to the world in 2024, not climate change, not nuclear war, not an asteroid, not the competency crisis, not immigration destroying like Western civilization. What is it? It's Donald Trump. A 90s liberal is the biggest threat to like the global international system, despite the fact that we have 4 years of his time in office where he didn't do nearly as much damage as people were hoping for. And this is also in the midst of a totally destroyed country. I mean, we saw this with Morning Joe on MSNBC, where they were saying like Ukraine is essentially lost to this conflict, and that we need to start moving towards peace. How many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have we killed, and hundreds of thousands more displaced, and have destroyed a country that is inevitably going to be rebuilt by foreign capital and will inevitably invite millions of people into that country that aren't Ukrainians or Slavs?
Well, people don't know this. Well, a lot of people don't know this, but even the first month or the first 6 months of the war, going forward, even if by some miracle Ukraine were to have achieved their their strategic military and geopolitical objectives, which were to be to force Russians out, to even quote unquote take back Crimea, even though Crimea was always Russia. But anyways, besides the point. Even if they were to achieve that, demographically, economically, and politically, they would have always, they were destroyed within the span of the first 5 to 6 months of the war. They can never go back to the way they were. And it's a tragedy because 30% of their population, I believe almost 40% of their population has either fled, moved to other parts of Europe, moved to America or Canada, especially Canada. And like the young men that they've run through, that have died, the average recruitment age is from 40 to 50. It's just they're in. And another thing too, another tragedy is that apparently their population of young women are also going away to foreign countries, and like their husbands are dying and they're remarrying, or they're going into quote unquote sex work. Like there's a huge statistic of that. The explosion of Ukrainian quote unquote sex workers has been incredible. And so like this is a nation that has been thoroughly destroyed. Even if they were to so quote unquote achieve victory, whatever that means, they can't. Because I think that if the Russians sense that a collapse scenario in terms of the military strategy is approaching, then they probably will be forced forward. They probably will do a huge offensive, because you have to realize that the Russians have trained an extra close to 500,000 men. And apparently their training cycle for a year is near completion, right? From last year. That's an extra 500,000 on top of the near million men that the Russians already have that they could call up from reserves. Not to say that all of them are combat ready, of course, right? And the Russians have a huge amount of young and not really that young men they could probably call up anyways. If there were a total apocalyptic, like NATO gets involved, you know what I mean? I mean, here's the thing. Zelensky and Netanyahu, they're going to get their parachutes. They're going to get their apartment in Miami, or they're going to
or Brooklyn.
My good friend Constantine from War Report said maybe Bibi Netanyahu, he's going to get the Daily Wire show slot. Can you imagine Netanyahu on the Daily Wire, right? You know, these people are fine, but the destruction they leave in their wake, I mean, that is yet to be mediated. And you know, I know we want to get away from Kissinger, but in the beginning of the year, not during the supposed counteroffensive in the summer, which failed. I mean, even the New York Times has admitted that the summer counteroffensive has failed. Kissinger, in the beginning of 2023, not the end of 2023, went to Ukraine and said to Zelensky, I think it's probably time that you go to the negotiating table. That's the beginning of 2023. There's been an extra 100,000 Ukrainian dead at the end of 2023, if you believe the numbers. Yeah,
well, and this goes back to the things that we've seen that has come out where it's like Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin basically told them no. Yeah. And again, I know we're trying to get away from Kissinger, but I mean, like, what does this illustrate?
You can't.
You really can't. You can't. Sorry. But like, what does it illustrate is that there's a totally different class of geopolitics and foreign service guys in there. And I mean, again, the guy was on the board of Raytheon as he was being sworn into office.
Oh, God.
Like, we broke all norms with this administration with respects to people that come on there.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of an important thing to consider. But yes, Mr. Tyler Thamster, you know.
Oh, yes, I have to.
They lost their channel yesterday with no warning or regard. I feel it is important to reiterate to our audience that if you are a right winger on YouTube, you have your days are numbered.
Yes.
And at any point in time, it can disappear, which is why, again, one, you should never abandon these platforms anyway. But when they do take it away from you,
fight to the end.
You know, fight till the end, but also do your best to be sure that you're anti-fragile, be on Rumble, be on Odyssey, be on BitChute, be on Substack, be on your own website, be on your own platforms, be on Libsyn, be on Apple Podcasts, be on Spotify, which I am now. I finally got that all set up for you guys. And it's really important to recognize that if our days are numbered on here, you know, like, and if we act surprised, that means we're being complacent, and we shouldn't be. We should be vigilant for knowing that, you know, one day, you know, they could take our channels away, and we need to be aware of that.
Yeah,
they are on Odyssey, so be sure to follow them there if you're a fan of Tyler and their work. He's on Odyssey.
They were given no warning either.
No
warning.
Mean,
I think maybe it could have been some kind of ban evasion thing with.
Well, they said it was ban evasion. I saw him tweet that. But again, just as a reiterating lesson, you have to be as anti-fragile as possible.
Yeah.
So that means you're streaming on 3 different platforms like we are right now. Actually, I think Odyssey didn't work. So we're on 3 right now. But I mean...
the Odyssey one didn't work.
No, I got to fix that. But we're on Rumble Live right now. We're on Twitter Live right now. We're on YouTube Live right now. You know,
I got to get Rumble. So it migrates all the videos. But, you know, and that's the thing. Like, you know, Tyler is really... you know, sticking his neck out to help out Jefferson Lee and Josh, and you know, and you know, he had Joel on regularly, and so it is a big loss, and I hope that it is remedied, you know. But that is like, I mean, thank God their archive is preserved, because you know, like EBL, the old episodes, and what they were doing with Theopolitics, and you know, and Jefferson Lee's show, and I believe Josh Neal was also starting up a new show. Really huge loss, you know. Like I mean, thank God most of it, all of it's been preserved. But you know, that's the thing. See, this is the problem, is that when you get clipped from YouTube, it is much harder to build that audience. The only person I could really think that has done a good job of that would be Millennial Woes. And a few other people. I shouldn't say that. I mean, you know, there's other figures that have managed to just like exist in the podcast thing. Like, for example, if I were to ever get clipped off YouTube, I pretty much would just transition to like Apple Podcast and do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would suck because I do like the visuals. I would want to, when I have more time next year, I want to go back to painting videos or dialogue over painting videos. But yeah, the Rupture News Network, that's what they were starting. You know, it's like that's the thing. You know, we do live in borrowed time, but yeah, it's a tragedy. But what was I gonna say? About
I don't know. What were we going to say?
You want to talk about the Midwestern, the fat white? No, that's who cares? Who cares?
Your trad wife, sir.
You remember that Philippians quote? Always, whatever is virtuous, whatever is, you know, whatever is moral, whatever is virtuous, whatever is of right of mind, you know. But you know, I don't know. It does suck. They're just dumping on some random Midwestern, you know, fat fat woman with kids. I mean, who cares? I know, like, I understand it's like another Breezewood type of thing. You know what I mean? Proved by Breezewood.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
It's one of those like American excess, fat Midwestern, blah blah blah. Like, but who cares? Who cares?
I feel as if with these sort of video, like, you know, what's the line? Everyone in the future, everyone is famous for 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's a MacGowan quote that's also been reiterated by some famous black singer. But why? When you're famous for 5 minutes, it's usually because you're the fat Midwestern woman making some tater tot casserole. That's not fame. That's infamy.
What's his name? Brown that said it? What was his name?
I don't know.
Was it Little Richard or was it
something like that? I'm just gonna like Google it real quick.
Yeah,
in the future, but yeah, no, but I mean, like, so here we are, right? Like, she was famous for 5 minutes, and that's the consequences. That sometimes fame is bad, and sometimes
she's just cooking tater tot slop. I mean, it's not healthy, but
yeah. I think it was Dave, the distribuist, that said it was like standardized, low quality, optimized product or whatever, like slop. And it's a really great turn of phrase. It's really good. But I mean, like,
every one of us. I mean, okay, don't look at me because I'm a fat guy, but every one of us has eaten slop like that. Okay, Prude, you probably have.
I did a whole stream yesterday about diner chain coffee. I know what slop is.
No, but have you eaten the white tacos? The white top, you know, like the Midwestern, like, you know, that with the package.
My brother in Christ, I make the crappy white people tacos. I love it. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Oh my god!
But I mean, so again, she seemed nice. The food looked like garbage, and she was overweight. Like, it was the perfect combination for everyone to go out there. Honestly, it has the same reaction that everyone had to Kruptos' tweet about like the trailer park single mom thing. And it's just like, okay, great. You know, we're highlighting that America has a decadence problem, that America's got a health problem. And then some people are like, well, we should defend this. And I'm like, well, we could be better.
Yeah, and, of course.
Again, it's the same thing that we've got with this respect. You know,
she could lose weight.
She could lose weight, as Zero HP Lovecraft would say. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I will say that, you know, I know that people have accused him of, like, you know, having a normal one. But truly one of the greatest posters right now is Scorched Earth Policy on Twitter. And, you know, he had a good thread on this woman. You know, listen, I disagree with his hatred towards this woman, but he had a good thread where he's like, okay, it's not just the fat thing. It's like the sort of like lower class, like poor working class, like where they're loud all the time, where they're like yelling. Like, he goes, that's just, you know, annoying. And it's, you know, it's indicative of, like, you know, out of all the vices they have, why does it have to be like loudness? Right. But I mean, you know, he is a great wordsmith. And people were freaking
Patrick
out.
Casey's got a good point here. Big difference between pointing out dysfunction and hating on people who don't deserve it.
Exactly,
I don't think she deserves the hate, but I mean,
she doesn't deserve the hate.
No, but she certainly does deserve. Like, I mean, not her personally, but I mean, writ large, America has some dysfunction, and I mean, I think that's a really good description. And it's everyone, but I mean, it also illustrates how dysfunctional we've gotten as a society, where some people are willing to defend this individual is like, nah, this is my trad wife, you know, like this is great. And it's just, I don't know. I think
Peachy Keenan had a good
I think we're better than that. I think we could be better.
No, we could be better, but I think that just like picking on some random fat woman with kids is like, I mean, when you put yourself out there in the online world, especially on TikTok, you know, TikTok has the capacity to be picked up by millions of people. So, and then further subsequent millions on Twitter, because it becomes an object of discourse.
I'll put her. I gotta like hide my messages real quick before I do that. Okay, so yeah, I'll share it on screen. I'm not going to play the audio, but I'll play it on here. And I mean, you know, he says pointless battle. Welcome to Twitter.com. You know, welcome to X.com. There are pointless battles fought every day on this godforsaken hell site.
Even more pointless and inane than the last one.
Yeah. So, you know, Peachy Keenan, who, I think she's like a mid 40s, late 30s mom. You know, she's got her books. She has actually a really great script that she wrote with someone called The Whites. And it's basically like a TV sitcom pilot about like a bunch of like white guys getting canceled. It's actually really good.
What if she wasn't fat though, this woman? People wouldn't be freaking out.
I think people would just, if she was fat, if she wasn't fat, I think people would still be pointing out the slop. And that would be it.
Maybe, but it wouldn't have the same adverse reaction, you know. So,
but you're going to miss blunt Midwestern moms who make comfort food in a wood paneled kitchen when they're gone. Sure, I mean she's got a point where like there's the like what Pat Casey said. There's a big difference between like just hating someone to hate on them versus, you know,
that's way too much like spice there though.
This is the thing I have issue with, is like, this is disgusting. I wouldn't want to eat that.
I don't want to eat that either.
I think there's a difference when like,
I'm not a big fan of ground beef either. I don't know. It's something about it.
But my tastes have been ruined by venison. I love venison steak. But I miss beef at this current moment, but that's okay.
Why you can't have beef?
Oh, it's the nativity fast for us in the Orthodox.
Okay.
World, so I'm basically like pescatarian for a little bit, but also vegan. It's a long story. But no, I mean, it just like, look at how bad this gets. But anyways, like, I just, my issue is at the end of the day, like, this is what, you know, the lower middle class poor whites eat. It's great. It's not healthy. It's slop. But at the end of the day, I can't hate the Midwestern white people. I don't see myself ever doing that. So again, everyone gets their 15 minutes of fame. And unfortunately, that 15 minutes can be a 15 minutes hate.
Well,
like,
you know,
in 1984, Emmanuel Goldstein gets 2 minutes hate. But, you know, on Twitter.com, you get like 24 hours of just, you're the main character for the day, and I'm so sorry if you are.
Yeah, but you know, Prude, the individual parts themselves are not that unhealthy. Like, there's nothing wrong with meat and potatoes, ground beef or potatoes. It's like, I think the salt is too much. Like, I don't know. It's like,
there's way too much sodium in that
way
food.
Too much sodium. It's like people that say that pizza is like, you know, junk food. I refuse to believe. Okay. Don't take my word for it. I mean, yeah, pizza can be junk food, of course. Depends how you make it.
So true, Pat. So true.
Wasn't washed. Oh God. Do we want to talk about the podcast network falling apart? No, let's not talk about that.
I thought this was for your like solo content variety hour, Gio. I'm not.
Next episode will be a solo show. Oh,
I've never been.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, by the way, I finally, after a few weeks, I've been so busy. I released an episode of Content Minded with Meta Prime. Talk about Silicon Valley. We talk about spirituality, naturalism. It's a good episode. So with Meta Prime. But anyways, you go. What were we gonna say, Prude? You never.
I'm just not that.
You're not an old head. It's, you know.
No, I wasn't the Prudentialist like 8 years ago on Twitter or on Facebook or anything like that. So no, I wasn't. It was just more of it was funny because like I found Semiagog back in like 2018, and I found him through Millennial while I was still like a normie, got college, going to like county GOP meetings. I said that on my Millennial episode last year. I was like, yeah, I know who you are, Woes. I'm a big fan in the same way and such. But
well, Woes really was an innovator, you know.
He really was. Yeah. Like the early days of like, you know, dissident right media spheres was great. We take a lot of that crap for granted, as we should. DA needs a third co-host, and I know just the free agents strike while the iron's hot. Well, Chat is the third host of the Digital Archipelago, Pat Casey.
Can you imagine That would be incredible. I don't think this particular person, I don't think he likes me very much. I remember in a chat once he called me.
I'm not doing that either. I like staying on mainstream platforms. Sorry.
Oh, we would get clipped right away if we had this particular code. Not to put any hate out there. Like, let's not talk about it because, but yeah,
Benji goes, I remember the first time I saw some Yagog for the first time, I thought it was Gibraltar. He is an elf. He's something out of a Tolkien novel. That's for sure.
But that would be interesting if this particular person was our third chair.
No,
that would be very interesting.
No,
kidding.
It ruins the jolly stout man, skinny straight man dynamic.
Yeah, that's right. It would screw up the vibe because who's Shane MacGowan?
I'm scrolling through chat now. Did I miss something?
Yeah, I think someone else died.
Shane MacGowan died, apparently. I gotta go. Singer-songwriter Shane MacGowan.
No, Kiravaj, we haven't blacklisted anybody from DA.
Shane MacGowan, irascible frontman of the Pogues, has died at age 65.
Oh, no way.
Died of a viral infection of encephalitis. Oh, geez. That's brutal.
That's bad.
Oof. That sucks.
Yeah. The DA boys never listened to the Pogues.
No, we did not. I am the definition of an early 2000s hipster, and that's most of the music I grew up listening to outside of a lot of 60s like surfer rock. It's really bad.
But anyways, what other news items have there been? There's been, I feel like everything's a wash now. But what else has there been before we if you had anything particular in mind, Prude?
I guess one of the things that I did want to talk about today was, again, sort of their...
Besides old head drama?
Well, yeah. I can live without some old true news. I'm sorry, Gio.
We'll have to wait for Night Owl's take on it. So
I will wait for future Moldovan citizen and Nightmare Vision to give me the take on night owls. I was on not too long ago. It was kind of fun to be on, and that was cool. I love referencing night owls on the YouTube audience because no one knows what the hell we're talking about. Like every episode's like, what's night owls? And I'm like, listen, it's a Twitter space full of like the best internet racists and old heads, and you never know when it's going to be live. It's usually Sunday evenings. And it goes way late into the night. A lot of cringe, a lot of Rick and Morty reviews, but it's great. It's fantastic. And they're never recorded. You have to be there.
One thing, though, Patrick Casey today, Patty O'Casey here, he had this thing where he said Patty McCasey, he had this thing he said that, when the Irish came to America, that Irish people are not Africans. And I have to disagree. As a son of an Ellis Islander, I have to... No, I'm kidding. I don't want to because you know when you joke and people think there's serious drama, but it was funny how like Patrick Casey said to this like Somali woman on Twitter, he's like, the simple fact is that Irish people are Europeans and Africans are not. And I wanted to like post a well actually meme just to like make fun. But, I don't know. I think it was, because like people, they make this, ethnic jokes like, the Irish are Africans or us Italians are Africans. I guess Italians are closer to Africans than Irish people are closer to Africans. I mean, if you wanted to do the line there in Europe, but, lots of people bit their tongue when they saw that tweet.
I guess I saw his back and forth with that Wilfred Riley character, like that odious,
that was one of those
disgusting, like
BTR episodes ever.
Just talking to a glass wall or a brick wall. Like this guy's like, and it's just like. I'm glad Pat did what he did because it's important to highlight, like, listen, man, like you're not listening to any sort of appeal here. You're just basing yourself on anti-white racism. And it's just like, I'm not here for it. I'm done.
Or when they said that like the Chinese and the Indians, they were a better civilization than the British Empire. If you look at the time span, you have two very ancient cultures and civilizations, the Indians and the Chinese, right? Especially the Chinese. But and the Indians too, but like the people like the esoteric anthropologists on Twitter, they debate whether the Indians are the real Indians, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever. But if you look at like even with the development of technology in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, I mean the British, the Anglo expanded relatively quickly as opposed to in terms of their capacity and their cultural diffusion relative to the Chinese, the Indians. So you can't, it's comparing apples to oranges. You can compare Rome to the British. Like, here's the thing. That's another thing.
Every European country has just tried to
be like Rome. Be like my people. Right? I mean, I know, listen, I know that there's I know there's a debate. Like, I know Sentinel of the Grave, he's a, I know Belief Sama is a Nordicist, and he doesn't believe that I am a real Roman, okay? That's fine. There's other people that, like, Thultide, at least, is pro-Italian. So, depending on the esoteric race science, genealogy, anthropology you're going on, whether you want to debate with, current Italians are the same as Romans, fine, okay? But the point being is, yeah, everyone wants to be Rome, but, when you think about, like, say there was this a Catholic poster that was doing this thing about, like, the Germans
we need to talk about him.
Which one? There's two.
Well, the one with the give, send, go.
Oh, that too. No, but there was another one, this cringe, like, you people were in bogs while us Romans were conquering you. Like, listen, I don't have any of this thing where it's like you got to denigrate other, the histories of other European peoples. Like, whatever. It's like, the Germanics and the Anglos, they had their own advancement, relatively quickly. And so this whole like thing about like, oh, well, the Romans, screw those Germanics. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's all cool. This discourse is cool. At the end of the day, the world treats us as we are, which is European. And, so there shouldn't be the squabbling. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, listen, I come from arguably one of, if not the most greatest empire the world's ever known. But, I mean,
I like this one, McLibs. This is pretty good.
McLibs, there you go.
That's pretty good.
Because even though, here's the thing, after Rome fell, and this is something you could say about the whole, like, oh, you pagans were living in huts and blah, blah, blah. Relatively quickly, the Germanics and the British, the Anglos and the Celts, developed quite rapidly after Rome. Well, Rome went to the east, of course. So it's like, this whole thing about like, I'm Italian, I'm better than you, I'm Germanic, and you're not the real you're not the real Roman. Like, this debate is nonsense, in my opinion. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, exactly, Patrick. No more brother wars is what I agree. Like, I'm the fan of the Anglos, and I'm a fan of the Germanics, and while the Nords can be a bit alienating to me as a Mediterranean, but I mean, even the Nords, right? Like, they've managed to, but the point being is that in terms of the metrics of civilization, you can't really do this like weirdo one-upmanship genealogy and anthropology where you're like, well, you see, we're better because of this. It's like, at the end of the day, Rome still fell, okay? Like, you know what I mean? As painful as to admit as an Italian, at the end of the day, Rome still fell. And it's like, yeah, even the Nords, I even like the Nords, even though the Nords, I think, are pretty alien in terms of my culture and my sense. But, I can't say that. Because people have said that I paint pretty close to the Nords. I'm very influenced by Edvard Munch. So my aesthetic sensibility is Mediterranean. But when it comes to my own artwork, I'm very close to the Nords with woodcuts and so forth. So it's very weird, very weird. Maybe I do have some kind of Nord in me. I don't have traditional Italian facial features. So, maybe I have to do my 23andMe or whatever. What's the better one than 23andMe? There's better ones? I don't know. Anyways, Prue, that was a long rant. The point being is that there's no more brother wars, and this whole like southern, Mediterranean versus northern European war is nonsensical. And that is what it is. Anyways, go on. 24 and me.
There you go, Gio. There you go.
There you go. What were we gonna say, Prue? What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I feel like it's sort of important to raise awareness on the issue of that kid that has the FBI
the Fed
entrapment.
trap.
So yeah, he was in sort of an FBI entrapment group chat. Apparently, from what I've heard from the guy, like he even used asterisks for his curse words.
Oh God.
Anyways, he left the group chat and led him to be arrested and charged by the FBI for an arrest warrant. Aristophanes Revenge did a really great job raising awareness to pay for the legal fees, and they made their money. They got the $25,000 raised.
Nice.
And unfortunately,
what were they charging him with? Like, what was he shit posting? What was he doing?
Well, when he left the group chat, they assumed that he was leaving to actually commit some kind of violent extremist action. They were trying to, I guess, create the next fun poster, as you like to say.
What?
Yeah, I mean, like we're not unfamiliar with this. Like we had there was a shooting in Texas earlier this year, or maybe late last year. It was like there's no one who works part-time at a Wendy's and has like psychological issues and gender issues can afford plates and a brand new rifle with ammunition. Not this economy. Sorry, wish I could. But like you can't. And
did you see that crazy's like that crazy Philo boomer that redacted those 3 Palestinian children? Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. But again,
recently.
It is a firm reminder that I don't care if you add the words in Minecraft. Do not do anything stupid or say anything stupid, or you would have to defend yourself in front of a court of law. Because it doesn't matter how funny the joke is to the GC or how many likes it gets on Twitter. Someone will be screenshotting that.
Yeah.
And will be using that at your trial to keep you in jail with no bail. Just
100%.
And I mean, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I get it. We all see the news sometimes and we get really upset. We're really angry with our passions. I mean, I have unfollowed people just to see less like rage-inducing content in my timeline. And it's just, listen, I know you want to react and I know you want to say like, but again, do not put yourself at risk, especially if you do know that you're on a list or something. And we already saw this with the whole Travis Brown thing too.
Yeah.
There was a list and they've done that. And we've got reports.
We didn't make the list though. We didn't make it.
I haven't checked. We didn't make the list.
I checked it. I should check for you.
I haven't downloaded it. I haven't bothered.
No, but see, people were scared of downloading it, but like
it's a CSV file. Like, what are you going to do?
No, but because what happened was Travis Brown deleted the original, but a frog managed to capture it. So it's a mirror. So it's not like Travis Brown's monitoring the GitHub. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, I hope his lawsuit with Elon goes very well. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, right?
Well, I
hope Elon sues him back into the Stone Age. But
it will be interesting to see how the discovery for that plays out. And that's another thing we talk about is the Elon Musk stuff. But like, it really does illustrate to me.
But about this Catholic Fed poster.
About this Tradcast kid.
Yeah. I'm just gonna get angry if I mention him. But one of I'm not gonna say his name, but one of the worst rats, one of the worst bog rats ever, just lowest of the low, rescinded his donation because like I didn't know what he posted. I didn't know. I'm talking about Rod Dreyer.
Yeah,
okay? Yeah.
So I mean, Give Send Go had been established to raise money for a Catholic family whose 15-year-old son was allegedly targeted in an online counterterrorism.
FBI case. 15 fucking years old.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting. Go ahead.
No. Anyways, I'm just gonna read this real quick. Counterterrorism sting operation, which would mark at least the 4th teenager in 2023 to be arrested after being targeted by the feds.
Biden. Here you go. Biden's Department of Justice right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
According to the Give, Send, Go page, Ruffini's father contracted cancer, which led to his son being unsupervised on a cell phone for long periods of time.
Oh,
He spent a lot of time alone with doing nothing to wait and think, and the cell phone became a welcome distraction. His interests in history and theology led him down a rabbit hole where he was recruited into group chats targeting teenage traditionalist Catholics with extreme political content. We later learned that these chats were being closely monitored and possibly operated by FBI agents as an effort to investigate traditional Catholics that was downstream of a broader domestic operation of the event spurred by January 6th, which we already do know that the Richmond Bureau Office of the FBI has been investigating traditional Catholics. He said that his son continued to do his schoolwork, help around the house. The family had no idea he was delving into extremist corners of the internet. The details of the son's internet activities are highly disturbing, suggesting that online undercover feds were trying to groom him for a potential act of terrorism, which we know the feds do. We know that they do. But anyways, he left the group chat, and for which we know from the family was stated for mental health reasons. But the FBI thinking, oh, we've actually got him to do something. Now we can arrest him and prove that these radical Catholics are going to go commit terrorist operations.
Yeah.
And so
he's going to blow up a Novus Ordo church. What is he? What is the radical in the trad Cath context here? Oh, no, sorry. He's going to redact an abortion clinic. Is that what is he going to do? Is that like, come on, like.
So anyways, yeah, the odious Rod Dreyer had tweeted that he's retracting it after quote being shown the arrest warrant and that it was really bad stuff from quote conservatives he trusts. And
does he trust that? Does a snake like him trust anybody in life besides his own ego?
As a man who has a lengthy history of being associated with doxing scandals and getting people fired from their positions for having anonymous Twitter accounts and politically quote-unquote unsavory views. And it wasn't just the gentleman who was fired from that traditional Christian school. There were more people fired in the aftermath of that doxing. It wasn't just one guy. There was an aftermath. That school had been radically transformed because of it. And now no kid there is going to get a classically conservative Christian education at that school.
Yeah, he torpedoed a Christian institution that was actually offering a conservative curriculum.
Well done.
Well done, Rod Dreyer. So, yeah, you're right, NG Benji. Rat Dreyer. That's his name from now on. Rat Dreyer. But
like, again, this really does illustrate several things.
I want to think of it. Okay. I was about, when I started making content in 2014, I was about 20. I was born in 92, so how old would I have been in 2014? Like 22, 23 years old, right?
Yeah.
And so like I periodically delete my old tweets because there's stuff that I reacted to, and it's like, even at the age of 23, it's like, you know what I mean? Like I was just a normie con when I was like 20, when I was 15. But like even when I was 22, I cringe at some of the stuff, not because they were Fed posts, just because they weren't conceptually accurate or they weren't conceptually sound compared to the tweet. And by the way, I didn't respond to him. I have to because I'm terrible with DMs. But my good friend, our good friend, Billionaire Psycho, said that I really perfected the posting ability in the last 6 months to a year on Twitter. And I know that I've paid for Twitter. I really have honed in my posting ability. I'm the only man. No, I'm not going to do the whole like. Anyways, point being is that, think back to when you were 15 though, and you said some stupid shit, and you're 50 and you're discovering things for the first time. Like, all these Zoomers that listen to us, right? They were probably posting on 4chan or on Twitter when they were 15, and you look back on it, I
was posting on 4chan in middle school. Like, I'm not proud of that admittance, and I'm not proud of the fact. I mean, I did a lot of silly stuff, and I've said some really stupid stuff as well.
Yeah, we all said stupid stuff.
I mean, I'm kind of blessed that you and I grew up in an age where like our old social media presence or the things that we said online, they're not going to haunt us to the same extent as anyone after a certain year. I mean, don't say the dumb stuff on video, which we've both kind of failed in this regard, right?
Well, we've said dumb stuff before.
Yeah, we've got some stupid stuff said before, and I mean, I said and did some stupid shit. I have no problem admitting that. But the big issue though is that, look, in an age where things are far more polarized, the state already hates you. If you're following any form of traditional Christianity, or if you're trying to go around the progressive nature of this world, and you want something that is more conservative, more based in order. I mean, the fundamental way to get to freedom is from order, to quote Metternich. You have to be extremely careful. And I mean, even if you're an anon, right? Like there's the line from Heat, right? Like if you're in this business, you never hold on to something that you can't be willing to drop in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
It's the same thing with your account. If you're not willing to drop it in 30 seconds, then be careful about what you say. It's the same thing with what we do on here. There's a lot of issues with respects to.
Have we said some dumb shit on here?
I have said a lot of dumb shit on here, and I'm not proud of it.
I try to be careful.
But it really does illustrate how dangerous the hour is. And if you are a young kid, and if you are a Zoomer listening to us, I'm out of all the
things.
There's
gonna be in a few years. There'll be Gen Alpha listening to us.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are. But again, really important to iterate this. Every chat that you're in, and this is the rule that Semiagog has, assume everyone is an agent, and assume that at any point in time, that chat will be leaked, and shown before a court of law, and shown to your parents.
Mm-hmm.
You have to act with a degree of sobriety and gravity to this situation. Is it fun? Is it fun to talk about these things? Is it fun to call Rod Dreher a rat or whatever? Sure, it can be entertaining. It can be entertaining. But there will come a day in real life. I'm not talking about the dread tribunal of Christ that comes when we die. You have to answer that too. But on the internet, at least, you have to answer to the fact that one day someone could quote tweet you or take a screenshot out of context and make you look like the devil. And all
it happened to me before.
It's happened to Gio. And he had you had some Antifa guy follow you around.
Yeah, but he's he's crazy. It's all right.
But it illustrates.
Still, it is. Yeah.
And I mean, as we saw with the Ireland
riots, I was come after. I'm confusing my English. I was. How shall I? What's the correct term where they go after you? But it's like, I was.
Stalk you, investigate you.
I was. Came upon, but not came. What's the word? I was preyed upon by the irony leftists for a little bit, and they took that photo from 2014 where my gunt was out, and like I was painting. Like, it sucks, man. Like, and I was just making a stupid joke about like but it's like, it sucks, and it's embarrassing. And when you become the main character for a little bit, there's actually a tweet going around saying, when do you become what was the episode where you became a villain on Twitter? And unfortunately did not screen cap it. But, the guy that really went after me with that thread, he's not been having some good luck anyway. Irony left. Not that listen, and you know what? I pray for the guy. I don't it is what it is. And he had a terrible medical emergency that happened to him. And I wish no ill will towards him. And it is what it is. I do wish ill will to the guy that sent him, who I will not name, that fucking fat piece of shit. But anyways, listen, I never make fun of people for their weight because I'm fat myself. But this guy, I make an exception. You know what I'm talking about. But anyways, he was the one that sent.
Are you referring to Garbage Ape or
no, the other fat piece of shit.
Yes.
Who sent these irony leftists? I believe Garbage Ape was also in that thread doing like the cooking thing with the wok. Because this thread was about how I was like an incel, blah blah blah. Which I was an incel at the time. But but the point being is that it's never fun to be. Like, Prude, have you ever had an experience where people ratioed you, or I don't know? I don't think you've ever had.
I haven't had that. Well,
You've had
No,
ones where like people respond to you, but not like
where people respond.
Yeah.
I mean, not in agreement. I've been ratioed where people make an additional point expanding
Yeah,
on
I've had
something I've
that
made.
too.
But
Yeah.
no, I've never gone out of my way to like start a fight on
Yeah.
Twitter. I just I'm a diplomat to a fault.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I've
yeah.
started a few fights, but I felt like they were necessary.
But some fights are
yeah.
necessary, like Pat Casey's fight with Wilfred Riley, who defends the idea that homosexuals should adopt children.
Oh my god.
Which you shouldn't.
Wilfred
Sorry.
Riley.
Like I don't care what year it's current year. I don't care. Homosexuals should not adopt children. I don't think that that's a particularly controversial thing to say.
You know what's funny?
Human trafficking is a serious subject, and they play a role in it.
You know what's funny? No, it's not PPP. I wouldn't go to beef with PPP. You know what's funny is that there was this Irish girl in my class way back in high school, and I actually had this like huge argument with her in a religion class about gay adoption. And so even then, you know, I mean, it wasn't. I remember that. I think because I had a thing for her. But, you know, anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point being is that, you know, always assume that people are going to cap you and people are going to, you know, people are preying on your downfall and in the group chat. And so, you know, sometimes you have to act accordingly. And when you do put your face and your name out there, you know, you do have to, maybe that's why I'm not on the Travis Brown list, because I'm not an anon. So, you know what I mean? So, and
I've been told I'm not on that list. So
yeah, I'll look for you actually. But you know,
someone in chat informed me.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, you know, but then there's other people who, you know, they don't have the face F slurring. It was forced upon them by doxing, and they've acted accordingly. I mean, you know, a guy like that's in our chat right now. By that I mean Patty O'Casey. You know, who, you know, like
we'll be live later tonight reviewing the trash fire of a debate between Governor Gavin Newsom.
Is that debate live?
Yeah, it'll be live. It'll be live.
My god, why would he do this to himself?
Someone has to review it? I'm not going to watch it. I've only watched the Republican presidential debates. Well, because he's desperate and it's already over for him. So this is his last gasp at relevancy. But I mean, like, I've only watched
put on the kamikaze, you know, like the Mishima one. Yeah. Oh man, Mishima was trending the other day.
If he does like what Mishima did, then you know, like my respect for Governor Newsom would just increase tenfold.
No, but he'd have to take his boots off first to reveal.
Oh yeah, he's like I'm Ron DeSantis and I'm 5'6" and this is the end of myself. You know, right?
Yeah, Patrick Casey made the choice to self-dox. That's right. Yeah,
same. I showed my face. I get that, but like no, I mean. I've only watched all of the Republican presidential debates because of Pat Casey reviewing them. Because if not, I wasn't going to care. Like, who cares that a bunch of people are basically telling you we have to go back to the 2012 Barack Obama era GOP, and we got to like give more money and bomb Iran. And no thanks, I'm good. I'll take my orange Cheeto Hitler. Thank you very much. You know, like. I'll take the greatest threat to the world, according to The Economist magazine. You know,
the greatest threat to the world. Yeah, you know what's funny is that well, okay, but the doxing thing, like Millennial Woes said this. You know, Wozy said this. He's like, I never thought that. You know, I should have assumed if I was going to use my name and my voice that I would be doxed eventually. But you know, I didn't even assume back then that a journalist was going to come after me. I just made videos on YouTube. And so, you know, but it is startling though. I mean, I think if you're going to post your face out there, then you're going to have to assume that people are going to dox you. And like, or you live in a world where you're kind of like semi-doxed, but like certain people don't know. You know, because like there's a lot of figures like that sort of play kind of like loose with it. But anyways, yeah, so be careful, kids. But yeah, Rat Dryer just pisses me off. But no, about Trump, what I was going to say about Trump is that, you know what's funny? I was browsing these like free channels, because like, yeah, because you know when you have like Amazon Prime, you get like, you know, the Tubi and Plex and all that. So they had this one channel, and I don't know why, but it's kind of cozy, where I was watching the This Old House channel on like Plex or Roku or whatever, where it's like old episodes of This Old House with Bob Vila. You ever watch Bob Vila, Prude?
No.
You never watched Bob Vila? Like before there was like all those other home improvement shows, it was Bob Vila. So
I didn't really grow up with television, man.
Yeah, true.
You know this.
Oh, this is before my time. This is like in the 80s, right? And I think the UK had their own version of Bob Vila, like home improvement show, but he like builds up homes and like anyways. So he had this episode where he also does like in between building homes, he'll like have segments with architecture and all that. And there was this one where he was touring Trump Tower when it was first built in New York. And he actually interviewed Donald Trump. And he went through the apartments with because I believe Ivana Trump did a lot of the like spec interior designs, right? Which is like in all these apartments, like millions of dollars to live in these places, right? In the middle of Trump Tower. But they were going through Trump Square, which is like huge, like filled with marble and brass and light, and this like very futuristic mezzanine type of entrance, right? This like, that goes all the way up to Trump Tower. And I believe Ivana Trump also helped design it. And so he's interviewing Donald Trump and he's talking about like, well, we have to take risks and, I love building things. And it's like, the thing is you have to really envision like when you're building something and it's something that's going to last and something is, and I really thought that like, this is where Trump, and this is like the mid 80s when they first built Trump Tower with Bob Vila, and Bob Vila is there interviewing Donald Trump in the middle of Trump Tower. It's like, I had that thought that like, this is why I think Trump inevitably became president, because he had this obsession with the sort of conquest of space that, I mean, and some people, can do the Benjamin thing about like aestheticizing politics as fascism, blah, blah, blah. But, Trump really is sort of like the last instantiation of an older type of millionaire or billionaire, where it's about physical presence and it's about building these monuments that have a lot of class and luxury. And like really like the whole, like all of the rich people that came after him were all like Silicon Valley people whose empires and whose buildings were virtual. And so I think like, the Trumpian spirit, that really is, when he said in the interview, he's like, I love building things. I like to see things built in a physical space that I can say is my own. I look at this huge open palace with all of these designer stores and all these like rich people paying for this apartment where you can overlook in these huge windows. You can overlook, what's that park in New York? What's it called? Central Park, like that I think was what motivated Trump, because he had that sort of older model of visionary politics. And, and when it comes to 2024, I mean, I think a lot of that mana has been expended. And I don't know, like, I mean, but there is something to be said about the legacy of Trump from that angle, is that he's, he comes from an older world in some respects, even though he managed to harness the power of this new world through the internet, which is very interesting. And I think even his enemies would even concede to that point. Maybe, probably not,
I think this is why you had this sort of desire to return to this 80s optimism. Like, this is why like zombie Reaganism is always present in sort of the mainstream GOP right. It's just that you want to have a morning in America, we can build things again, last hurrah of this sort of like apogee American optimism.
Oh yeah.
We can return to some kind of greatness. And I mean, Trump is at his sort of greatest in the 80s and 90s. And I mean, you're living in this king of real estate. You like watching stuff get built. You are part of building things. You are building an empire of, casinos and real estate and parks and places like that. And, the value of what this can be. People want that. People like hope. This goes back to every other form of of politics. Like, complaining is great, because complaining is like that. What is it? The Arthur Chu tweets. I want you to be the weak man, but deep down, even those who want to be followed or like want to be followers. They know in their hearts that they're spiritually meant to be like the follower or the servant or whatever. Even they long for a king, a great man, someone to tell them who they are and what they can be. Because even if you are a follower, you never feel like you can write something or create something or start a business, but you like listening to the people who do. Those are inspirations. Those are people that we want to learn from. And how can I be like you, even if I can never do what you do? And I think Trump sort of embodies that to a lot of mainstream people. Like, oh, the guy says we're going to bomb the shit out of him and we're going to make America great again and we're going to go build things in America again. Even if he is sort of this regression to an older culture, what is Trump doing other than saying like, hey, you know, to be like Lindy Man, hey, there's a stuck culture. I want us to get unstuck. Like that's a very powerful aura and there's a very powerful drive that speaks to a political portion of America that is constantly hated, you know, exiled from business, universities, advancements in our own government, in the bureaucracy, and we're constantly the ones being shat on by Saturday Night Live or, you know, mainstream television. I mean, there are shows like FBI or Law and Order where every criminal's a white guy and it's always right-wing extremism and it's being arrested by like a ethnically ambiguous girl boss and a Muslim. Like, that's not America. And everyone who has like 2 cents in their like 2 brain cells rubbing together knows that that's not America. But that's the fake saccharine image of this post 2000s, post, you know, reaction to sort of a white political consciousness that they will ever be haunted by, which again, you know, Jacques Derrida, eat your heart out. And I know that you're dead and burning in hell, but like the real specter of the West that's haunting this civilization, it isn't Marx. It's an Austrian guy.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my little rant.
No, it's true because like that's such, you know, that the whole like Red Scare, like that's such an older model, you know what I mean? Like that's not real anymore. I mean, now it's like you have you know what's funny is that recently there was this politician that he's part of Ford's government here in Ontario, and you know he's another fellow Italian, but he lives in Woodbridge. And he proposed like this, you know, anti-communist education. And, you know, they were just outright saying it like, you know, anti-communism is fascism. And maybe, you know, like, yeah, maybe it's true. You know, so it's very funny how they were pearl clutching over this because it's one of these like symbolic things that it's never going to pass, but the left is going to treat it as an imminent threat because they can never have their power being challenged ever. And it's one of those things where it will be part of the pastiche that they are like the underdog, and that the Red Scare is here to stay again, and that you know there's Joe McCarthy and you know Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger now, that they're gonna like come out of the woodwork with the Austrian painter. They're gonna come out of the grave of history, and they're going to oppress the wholesome Chungus MB kids once again. So, you know,
could you just imagine that? I'm just sorry. My brain is thinking of that certain quote about his spirit coming back from the grave. I'm thinking of like Henry Kissinger, you know?
Yeah. No, but it is funny though. Like it's the same, like that, you know, like it's like that's their image, right? Of like of powerlessness, even though I mean, if you look at like, there's this one journalist whoever saying like, you know, this is fascism in Canada, and like they're arresting political activists. It's like, do you mean truckers? No, you don't mean the truckers. You mean like, you mean leftoid. What leftoid Antifa person's going to get arrested in Canada? Honestly, I mean basically like, they do.
Even in America, right? You have lawyers. Even in America, like you have lawyers and judges in the Pacific Northwest that are like, I am Antifa, and it's just like, cool, you know?
Yeah. But meanwhile, like some 15-year-old tradcath that has, you know, watched a few Fulton Sheen lectures, like, you know,
it's entrapped.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And again, it does illustrate, if you are a parent, you have to be very careful about how you raise your kids these days.
Yeah.
Like, this is the environment we live in. Like, this is full, you know, the full spectrum. We call it 5th gen, whatever. Like, Every tool that has ever been learned on the global war on terror and propaganda goes home. And it will go in your home too, because, you know, home may be where the heart is, but the government is where its eyes are. And the eyes are on people that look like us. And that's the nature.
You know, I wish there was anti-communist education in school. Like, you know, if Ford does that, then you know what? Maybe I was wrong about Doug Ford. But
I mean, that was something that even Ron, there's a lot of issues that you have with Ron DeSantis, from his hate speech laws to his really autistic campaign, or hiring the worst types of online influencers that I think turned more people on. Like, I think, like, this is the funny thing about the Ron DeSantis campaign is like, people are like, on paper, he's a good candidate. Like, they're doing the whole Moneyball thing where they're just like, oh, you know, like he's got the stats, you know, he can govern, he's doing this, blah, 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 blah. And then like, all right, we're going to roll out the PR campaign. And it's just the most insufferable, like, conservative Inc. influencers imaginable. Awful. And then he opens his damn mouth and it was just the full spaghetti flies out of the pockets. And it's like, okay, you know, he gets on base. Yeah, he might get on base, but no one likes him. You know,
he's just an awkward guy.
He wanted to do, and I don't know if this actually happened. I think he signed a law for it, but it was about victims of communism in Florida public school education, which I'm all for. That's a good thing to promote. Anything that is rabidly anti-Marxist, anti-communist should be in education. Like, every history teacher should make kids read Stalin's War and be like, here you go. Here's the real mastermind, evil villain of World War II. He rolled a nat 1 on charisma, but had like a full 20 on it. Yeah, he was min-maxing. And unfortunately, he rolled a nat 1 on the campaign stage, and then just
he speed ran his collapse into memedom, into localdom.
And thankfully, Pat Casey can tell us how bad the debate tonight is going to be. This evening.
You know, it's funny. Wyatt had the best thread on the destruction of DeSantis, but anyways, you were saying,
I just think it's sort of important to consider, like, what we're dealing with. And I mean, also, if you're Nate Hochman, or if you're a face lord conservative pundit activist, if you're going to do a Sonnenrad edit, give it to a racist anon. Do not give it to yourself.
Sublet it to
Nate. Sublet it to some anons in a group chat. You can't make that shit yourself.
Hungry.
I'm hungry. And it's just like, Ron, that might have been the most relatable thing you've ever done.
Oh my God.
That's really depressing. Hungry. And it's like, all right, Ron, literally me moments right here. You should have just... Ron could have doubled down on the autism. He could have said, listen, I am the first autistic presidential candidate. I am going to be here, you know, state mandated ASPE GFs for everyone. Apustaya is going to run our presidential campaign. We're going to replace the helper Pepe is ours now. You know, we're going to do it. Please be patient. He could have had a blue hat instead of a red hat. He could have done it, but no, this is what we get. I can't take gifts. I can't show you my real height.
Like, no player in Florida on the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning is ever going to wear a Pride warm-up jersey. Okay? We're going to bring back fighting in hockey. We're going to get Brandon Montour to start fighting again. And so I think he is a fan of the Florida Panthers. So he's like, we're going to have no Pride jerseys in Florida. So, but yeah, that could have been that. Well, you know, he could have hemmed up the pro wrestling thing too, because, you know, all of the WWE, like the Performance Center, and especially during Clownvid, they did everything in Florida, right? So DeSantis, so he did, during Clownvid, he facilitated the UFC and WWE to like keep performing, right? So he did a great service for sports entertainment. So DeSantis could have like played up like the politics is pro wrestling thing. You know what I mean? Like, he would stop your GM. He could have been there. Like, DeSantis could have like brought on.
He did the anti-LGBT education bill, which still sucks because it's like, oh man, these progressive like groomers have to wait until like 4th grade before they can like trans your kids. It's like not good enough.
And that wasn't even good enough. Yeah. No, but that was even like, you know, they had like rallies and, you know, mainstream media calling him a fascist, and, you know, he's like Handmaid's Tale, And like, you know what I mean? So even that was like too much for the mainstream.
Also, I
right?
love that Jay Burden retweets like cringe atheist liberals, because he had retweeted one today where he's just like, the way that The Handmaid's Tale happened is a bunch of Christians smiling, saying it's not that bad, and it's just like, does everyone forget that like Margaret Atwood was just writing like smut for liberal women that like really get off on aborting their child? Like, let's not kid ourselves here. Like, there is no world where Gilead comes to existence. It's not. And where
it's like I responded to Conrad from Where We're Now. I said, where he's like, this is just fetish for like libtards, right?
It is. This is just,
women getting impregnated by Chads while their sister wives watch, while the vast majority of low-class men get to toil in cobalt mines.
Margaret Atwood, are you a Mormon? Margaret Atwood, are you a Mormon? Hold on a second. We're going to go look up Margaret Atwood.
You mean to tell me that their wives get to watch while they're impregnated by Chads, while the vast majority of low-class men get to toil in absolute Morlock existence? You mean to tell me that's not a fetish? I mean, that's,
yeah.
Talk about selective breeding.
Yeah, right. Margaret Atwood, Bronze Age pervert. Where's the overlap?
Oh my God. No, but DeSantis, he could have like been flanked by Vince McMahon and Dana White, and he could have done the whole angle. You know what I mean? That would have been way more effective than paying Pedro Gonzalez and David Reboy to do his campaign. It's still supplanted Harry Potter as the new libtard, but that's they can't enjoy Harry Potter anymore. That's too transphobic.
I saw some I saw a webcomic from like when the whole Harry Potter Legacy thing came out, where it's like, a Harry Potter game, and he like stops this kid from playing it, and right above the game is this like giant anvil that just says, definitive statements about your political opinions. And it's just like,
yeah, it's true.
Gamergate never ended, kids, and it's that's sort of the see. Every time I saw this tweet today, and someone was just like, every time you say the word Gamergate, Mr. Medicare's life is extended by 3 hours.
No, but it's true. Like, we've never left it. You know what I mean? Like,
no, and it was funny because I've been on this like weird. I haven't listened to any stand-up comedy in a very long time. I haven't. But I am a fan of Norm Macdonald. God rest his soul. But so I was listening to a lot of old stand-up stuff that he did. And of course, when you listen to old stand-up, you can see how certain bits and sketches get renewed. But then, so there's been a lot of just recommended feed stuff that's come my way. And he was on this like show judging like stand-up. It was like American Idol, but for stand-up comics. And it was very interesting where like Norm Macdonald defended Christianity against this like shitlib new atheist comic and whatever. And
who is it, Janine Garofalo?
I don't know who it was, but He basically said, like, listen, if you're going to, like, shit on Christianity, you should know what you're talking about. And he's just like, you can talk about Harry Potter all you want, but, like, J.K. Rowling has said, if you know scripture, you know how her entire story ends. And it was like, and so you just kind of really enjoy this sort of stuff. But it was just sort of weird because I listened to a stand-up thing when I had dinner with my folks not too long ago. And it was just like, they had a stand-up thing on in the background. And it was like this Mike Birbiglia bit. It was about dying and things and getting old, and he's a relatively like clean comic, which I appreciate. Like, clean comedy is very hard to find these days. And it's just like, this is a medium that I don't really enjoy anymore. And
it's not.
And I wonder how much of this is just because like, I've been like a politically radicalized individual. But like, it's like they're hour-long sermons where they attempt to make you laugh, like, and it's almost as if we've turned, well, you got to be funny, to, well, now you got to give me a sermon because I don't go to church on Sunday. So the funny man's got to tell me how to live my life and to be
the funny man delivers truth. Remember that they always deliver truth. Like the comedian, the jester, they're the secret truth tellers.
Yeah, they're the ones that are really speaking truth to power. And it's like these guys usually got killed the moment they started being funny.
Like that was the whole bit with like, and it was before Jon Stewart. It was like, Bill Hicks and George Carlin and like, I forget who it was. I think it may have been Starbard, or it may have been Mart who tweeted like when people were talking about Carlin a month ago, where he's like, swear word, shit, piss, blah blah blah, and it's
that
like
was Starbard.
There's Starboy's like, God isn't real.
We have to remember that Mart sold his account to a horny Indian man sometime earlier this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, with like that the Jewish twink with hairless legs, to keep tweeting about the. Never mind, man. I'm sad, man. I mean, I don't know. Mark can still produce some gems, but John, you always thought Janine Garofalo was quite hot. I mean, in a nerd girl kind of way. I
guess there's if you have a thing for nerdy chicks, there ain't a problem with that.
Wasn't Janine Garofalo like the Lindsay Ellis of her day in some ways?
Find out.
Yeah, she was kind of like the Lindsay Ellis of her day.
Let's find out when she was young.
She did look all right back in the day, Janine Garofalo.
Images.
She kind of fell off though. I don't know.
I mean, she definitely shows her age now, but I mean, when she was younger, sure, she looked okay.
Yeah, but same with Lindsay Ellis. The alcoholism got to her.
Not my cup of tea sort of stuff, but yeah, sure,
Yeah.
Sweet Beardless 9 hours. Time to watch this. Time to watch the stunt. Well, I'm recording later tonight. I'm recording tomorrow night, and then on Monday I'm recording it with Pete Quinones. So there's going to be a lot of good content behind the paywall. So for all those people that Spasticus Autisticus just gifted subs to, you will all get to see them early. So enjoy.
R.I.P. to pre-wall Lindsay Ellis. Well, hey, post-wall Lindsay Ellis is our good friend
talking
Billy
about
Pratt's
nostalgia.
A fan. Yeah, our good friend Billy Pratt's a fan of post-wall Lindsay Ellis.
Does she do anything these days?
I don't know. I think she just got her millions and ran. Like, I mean, didn't she try to marry Doug Walker?
I would take my millions and run, because at a certain point,
yeah,
the sort of like lit crit liberal video essayist, I feel like there's such a glut in that market. Like, there's too much crap in that space.
There's impossible women that look that fill in the void for Lindsay Ellis. That she's got to compete with impossible women now. So
yeah, I don't know how you can compete against that.
Can't really do it.
That's a hard market to dilate against. It's a real pain in the ass.
Hard market to dilate again. Oh my god.
Hard to spread yourself out and make yourself stand out from the crowd.
Didn't they cancel that one guy that Sargon used to beef with? What's his name? Xander Hall. He was like the budget vouch.
Really?
I think they canceled him over something.
Listen, man, you want to talk about breadtubers? Go ask Dave.
Yeah, Dave will probably talk.
Dave will know.
He'll give you the skinny on it,
You know the meme where it's like all of the women picking out the colors of pink, and the dude is just like, oh, pink. Like there's all these breadtubers, and Dave is just like, that's garbage. But I'm going to listen to that shit forever. And that's, I can't believe it's not women.
They're the only you can't believe it's not women.
Can't believe it's not women, and it's got that really disgusting oily putrid smell of death, The
only woman breadtuber that's pretty decent is that, what's her name, Olivia Sunvai. She's all right. Like, some of her videos are good.
I don't know any of these people, so I have to ask. It's
she's pretty pop. She's like a TikToker, but also does the video essay.
Is Demon Mama like a troon?
No, I don't know. I'm
not gonna ask.
Who's that one that took those chemicals to breastfeed? You know that one? You remember that video?
No, I'm done. We're good. Info hazard. Do not research.
Info hazard. Yeah, do not. Well, this person is like a pretty popular on TikTok, and but no, I mean, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Cuck Philosophy's all right. What is Cuck Philosophy's name now? Some other stupid name, but like he's capable of doing good stuff. I you know what I hate? I hate that guy Horses. Did this terrible video on fascism, did these like art videos that like it's you know what I hate? When they try to do like videos on artists where it's anything but the actual art. It's always about like how Van Gogh had depression or how Hemingway had depression. It's like it's never about their artwork. It's never about the plays.
It's always about how depression is the greatest motivator for artistic expression.
Yeah, it's such
not that those people drank them or killed themselves because of their depression. No, it's he died, but he left all these great things because he was sad. No, it's because he had life. He was inspired. I mean, Ernest Hemingway spied. He was a communist fanboy, but I mean that dude slung dick and wrote stories about trying to convince the women he slept with to get rid of the consequences. I mean, maybe all.
Oh, I mean, that is right. Yeah,
maybe all artists are unstable.
No, that's true.
Are you unstable, Gio?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, so there you
Olivia
go.
Olivia sucks. I got to suggest some of her essays into a Zoomer Dross. Okay, if you can get behind the Zoomer Dross, she actually does have pretty decent. But Hemingway, yeah, he was a terrible human being. Hemingway.
But I mean, there's some great stories that he wrote.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
mean, like, there's some awful, and again, there's the whole separation of art from the artist. But like, I mean, hey, like, there's some interesting stuff there, I think. And I mean, the same thing with other writers of the 20th century. I mean, like, God knows that Ezra Pound has like a very unstable history, but like, you can read the cantos, you can read any of his other poems, and you're like, oh, there's some intellect here, there's some artistic merit, and that's an important thing to consider. Speaking of artistic,
redacted his wife.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of artistic merit, our friend Matthew the Stoat is having his annual Christmas sale.
Yeah,
so go find Matthew the Stoat on Twitter.
But also, it's other artists like my good friend Beth, my good friend Juniper Tree, and Sean. They're also doing the same art sale under him. So you can also DM them if you want one of their pieces. I wasn't producing a lot because of writing my book this year, but next year I'm probably going to dive back into the work of art. I have to. I've been, but it's at Matthew the Stout on Twitter. It's his pinned tweet, and you could, if you don't like, you could also buy stuff from, I believe it's Beth, my friend Sean, my friend Juniper Tree, and I believe a few other people. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, a lot of great people that are doing some fun stuff.
And he's also the judge of Passage Prize 3. He's the visual art judge.
There you go, right?
Coming up. So I feel kind of, but you know what? I have no regrets. I picked who I picked, and it is what it is. But I know I got into some controversy there. But Passage Prize 1.
Oh boy.
That was funny. People ignored first and second place. They immediately focused on King Salmon Fish. But oh boy. Anyways.
So I wonder, I know he's not an artist, but I do wonder if the Art of Darkness guys will now have on November 30th of 2024, whether or not Art of Darkness will cover the life of Henry Kissinger.
Oh, maybe that would be like a 10-hour
because they do the. I'm going to do a series on his life and his work as a statesman and such, but I think about what's the word I'm looking for? They have this policy where they wait a year and a day before they cover an artist. So Norm Macdonald died, and they waited a year and a day to cover his life.
Oh, really? Why do they do that?
Let the dead rest. I don't know.
I
don't know. I just listen to
internet
their.
brain.
I just listen to their
strike
content.
The iron while it's hot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, that's the medium as the massage warping our brains to say, hey, no respect for the dead. Screw
strike
this.
the iron while it's hot.
Talk about it now.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we're doing.
Because people are going to forget in a year. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's the big problem when you're like, yeah, they're actually doing a stream. Yeah, Pete Q and Thomas77 are doing one right now. So I mean, like, there you go. If you want the life and work,
are numbers getting buried because of it?
We're a little less than what we usually are.
I know
but we're still
doing.
We got 200 on right now.
That's pretty good.
Our digital archipelago audience is a tough.
Well, I tell you
audience.
what, next week we're gonna probably have a lot of eyeballs on us next week.
Why? Oh yeah.
See, your mind already put a block it. Your mind already blocked it. For those who don't know, next week we're covering Kink season 1 and we're probably if it's popular.
No.
We could paywall.
No.
We could do all 5 seasons.
No. No.
Season 2 is great though. I really like season 2.
No.
It would make us a lot of money. It could. No. One season was enough.
One season was enough. So you have to understand, you want to cover a television show
from the early 2000s.
From the early 2000s that is the same disgusting, sodomizing debauchery that is promoted by every shit lib on Twitter. Every breadtuber. Every sex positivity fat sex therapist. You want to cover the proto-origins of this from an obscure Canadian television show in the early 80s. Why?
Because it's a piece of history, Prude. It's a piece of history.
Well, history won, and history's here, and you can look on your timeline and see these truths and queers and slop. You want your gay cummies, Geo? Go on Twitter.
Well, it was novel. It was like sort of innocent back then, but now it's become kitschy.
No, it wasn't, because you go back 40 years ago in the 70s or in the 80s.
The Leatherman, the Leatherman,
and all these other queers that were basically, like, no, it's the same crap. It's the same crap.
Oh.
It's like, we're going to do Portlandia, but we're going to just make it about the most debaucherous pervert homosexuals you can ever imagine. It's like, all right, that's digital archipelago content right
they
here.
do have like an introspection as to why these people do what they do,
Yeah, because they were diddled as children.
Especially the fat bear guy that goes on the internet and like has the slave. That was in season 1, right? Yeah, after you watch it. Prude's just like, he's out of it. It's over. I don't know how we're gonna get through next week. That's good.
A mutual friend of ours on Twitter, who I know IRL, and he's a good friend of mine. He texted me the other day. He's like, you need to understand that, like, this is your every week that you do this is like the dark night of the soul for you, and it's just like a little bit, it makes good money, and I like doing it though. That's the problem. There's the millennial
monetize next week. I don't know.
There's the millennial, like BoJack Horseman. Don't fetishize your own sadness. And then there's like the stiff upper lip Charlie Brown, where he's just like the grief Schroeder. The grief is good.
Oh my God.
And I feel like that's me to some extent. The grief is good.
Chanting king. Yeah. Oh man.
Let it out, man. Let it out.
Can't you indulge in my nostalgia?
Your nostalgia for, like,
I used to watch Monday Night Raw.
I'm nostalgic for Sex Pests.
Then Kenny versus Spenny, and then Kink. So it was all in one go.
I'm nostalgic for Sex Pests.
The Aristocrats joke. It's like telling Prude the Aristocrats joke every episode. Oh my God.
Listen, there are staples to what we do. If this did not work out, or if I was thin-skinned and said, fuck this, I'm done, show would have ended like 40 episodes
ago.
It would have ended 40 episodes ago.
No, my God. You know what's funny, Prude, is that I just suggested it as a joke, but then the audience sort of like took it seriously. And so
they expected it from you.
Yeah,
they're Gio's into weird sex shit. We just covered the Teen Apocalypse trilogy.
It's really sociological. No, but it's like
yeah. And I read Playboy for the articles. Like, come on, it's sociological.
No, but it's funny because it's sort of like
sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Yeah, no, but it's like the rule in wrestling, whereas like as soon as you put a table or a chair out, the audience expects you to use it. So it's like as soon as you put something,
it was Chekhov's table,
Chekhov's table, yeah, exactly. As soon as you put a table there, Devon, get the tables. You better use that table. So give
him the chair, and then it's just over.
Oh man,
God Almighty! Well, the comment section will be entertaining for sure this episode. That's.
Well, I do have a lot of art reference folders, but I mean.
I'll put that up there. I don't care.
Oh, fuck.
For those listening on the audio podcast version of this, Cyber Ninja Zero says Geo totally has that MILF folder for art references. Chekhov's table, Chekhov's goon.
Chekhov's goon. They're meme folders, Geo. Exactly.
Yeah, they're meme folders, Geo. They're meme folders. I have an Apostaya folder on my computer and on my phone, so I can quickly.
I have reaction face folders.
I have reaction. I make GIFs. I have a few GIFs that I've made for the Schwab sphere that I quite like.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh.
Anyways, we're never getting to that article.
No, we'll get there eventually. Maybe that'll be episode 70.
Yeah, after King.
After. Give deeply today, gentlemen. That's all I'm going to say, so I can endure. Next Thursday.
You got some pretty good super chats.
I did.
Yeah.
But is there anything else?
Need some more. Well, what else is there? I'm feeling like we're leaving something out.
Elon Musk, go fuck yourself.
Oh yeah, that. Yes, King does have lesbians. I believe season 3 has a few lesbians, or no, season 2 as well. But yeah, Elon.
Phoenix Chat is the third member of the show.
Yeah, we don't even need Eric Stryker to be the third chair.
Yeah, there you go. Chat is the third character, the third host of the Digital Archipelago. See, by your participation, you are the host of the show. Congratulations.
Yeah. I love how Langan Industries is also a fellow millennial leaf because he knows exactly the breakdown of the first season. So first 5 episodes are Dom and sub stuff. Yes, exactly. So there you go. Listen, we're sociologists, you know what I mean? So we're online sociologists.
We're media theorists.
Yeah, exactly. We put oh my god, look at Cyber Ninja Zero. Geo puts Prude through humiliation ritual, we put Geo through it, and reality puts us through it. Exactly. It's
the circle of life.
It's a circle of life, exactly.
We had Elon Musk go visit Israel for a little bit.
Oh yeah. Didn't they plant some something
I don't know if it was planted. They just showed him like here's a cradle with some blood and bullets in it.
Yeah. But the bullets are not detached from the casing. They're like not even spent.
It was interesting to say the least. Because we had the Daily Wire kvetching humiliation ritual, and then we have
on Twitter Spaces.
Well, Elon, now you got to go to Israel. You know, I don't think he did the whole Wailing Wall thing because Elon Musk is like a transhumanist. He's not really a religious Zionist Christian.
Yeah.
But so now he had that New York Times interview, and they were talking about like the whole.
He knows the term philo-Semitic too. He's like,
he said, I'm a philo-Semite. I'm a philo-Semite.
He knows the term.
Well, who doesn't? But considering who he follows on Twitter, like he knows the term. But it was very interesting to see this New York Times interview where he basically said, listen, if they want to like blackmail me with money or advertising, he basically said, go fuck yourself. And it's very well viral.
He literally said, go fuck yourself. Yeah.
But again, I thought it was particularly interesting with respects to his view of the world, because it is very classically liberal. And I don't mean, in some instance, that's a bad thing. In some instance, it isn't. But like, he basically just explained, listen, the public will be the judge. If the public wants to boycott Twitter, they can boycott Twitter if they want. In the same way that people should have the right to boycott Disney. And he's, well, are people doing that? And he's like, well, yeah, they already are. Which is like, yeah, some people are. And Disney's shareholder meetings, they already know that the progressive social messaging is affecting them. But it was interesting to see where it's like, no, this is like a really diehard believer in the public square. And this is a diehard, believer in sort of this classical liberal understanding that like, no, the people should have the right to be informed to say these things. And it is very bizarre just to see that from the world's richest man. Like, it's like 2014 classical liberalism on the world stage, which is still a modest, like not more than modest improvement than what we had before. But it was funny watching this like New York Times guy being like, well, like Linda's right there on the stage. She has to sell the shit to advertisers, which is always funny. It's like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing where like it's Dr. Elon and Mrs. Yacarino. Cause like Elon will be like, interesting. It seems like the Prime Minister of Ireland hates native Irish people. And then Linda's like, well, actually on Twitter, the biggest thing that's being trending right now is sports. Go talk about football on twitter.com. Yeah. And it's a roller coaster ride, to say the least. But I don't know how it's a good thing, like
Linda Yacarino, fellas.
No. But I mean,
I want to get Billy to do that.
It's rare when someone is that rich. You're absolutely right. But I'm waiting for him to quote John Locke eventually in his discussions about politics. But if we're going to do the Sargon arcs, Sasan, that's kind of funny. But I mean, he's the world's richest man, and he's got literally, as he said it, he has fuck you money, but also he's beholden to the international stage because, Starlink is being used in Ukraine. You've got the issue over Israel and the platform over there. Like, he's got all sorts of stuff. Dr. Linda and Mr. Musk. There you go. That's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, like, this is just the way that the world is right now, and I'm hopeful that this means that he's willing to stand his ground and to be willing to blow some cash to keep the most important platform on the. I mean, for the media and the sort of like managerial class, like Twitter is the place. If you're a Zoomer that wants to influence millions of kids to go cut off their breasts, then you're on TikTok.
Yeah.
But like honestly, I mean, we can talk about TikTok one of these other days. I know that some people like Catherine D are on it all the time. I, for one, think that if you think Twitter brain is bad, TikTok
Imagine
brain
TikTok brain
is worse.
with their stupid dancing and
and the awful TTS voice, you know.
Oh my god! Or that stupid like where thoughts like do the like twerking with that stupid song with the beat, you know, or like because sometimes you see on YouTube Shorts like you'll see like the most like inane Cole ever, like people that do cooking videos where it's all like, you know, like or coffee talk. Oh, someone this tweet blew up about book talk about the dark romance. Speaking of Gilead, you saw that tweet where people were freaking out about like this.
Oh yeah, because all women just basically when women say they're
Women
into
who
books,
say
they're
they're avid
basically
readers.
yeah. If they're avid readers, according to Book Talk, that just means that they read smut.
Yeah, but like very very hairy like
what else has
kitchified type of.
Oh yeah,
like,
really disgusting BDSM like novels, you know, like
yeah, like
what I mean, what's the less
CNC, you know, CNC?
yeah, consensual non-consent.
Yeah.
Our play, if you catch my drift.
Well, next week on Digital Archipelago, episode 16.
There you go. We can talk about it then. But no, I mean, like, really, what was everyone surprised? I wasn't. Like, we grew up when 50 Shades of Grey was the hottest thing ever, and we found out that women really like reading pornography, and that they're also like disgusting sexual animals, and the way men are just different.
But it's always it's always like RPing, like CNC also increases their girl boss powers at the end of it. In these books, that there's a lot.
You can use me, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that gets to be the CEO. But deep down inside, I don't want to be the CEO. I just want to be treated like treated like a Scythian woman, you know.
Yeah. Like
CNC,
a slave of gore, like a slave of the Gorian. I love woodworking. Oh my god. No, but it's funny because this is like
dainty degens,
like the supernatural entity or the vampire or the werewolf lycan. They, you know, they I can't say it for YouTube, but also at the end of it, it will increase my girl boss powers. It's like it's the ultimate. It's like is that the fantasy that women have? Like, is that, I don't know. Like,
talk to your girlfriend and ask. I don't know.
No, we were talking about this, and she's like, "Yeah, that's like not my fantasy." But you know, a lot of women, it's like this because I think it's like what it is. Okay, is it sufficiently detached from?
Well, breaking news: women are whores.
God, no, but like even like feminists would argue this, right? Like it's detached. Like this type of media is harmful because it detaches you from not the supernatural shit, but like you never know in this world, right? Some certain ghost stories are kind of convincing, but it detaches you from the actual experience of what that domineering relationship or experience, whatever you want to call it, event actually does to people in the real world. And to fetishize things like non-consensual acts, it's like, I mean, I'm using consent because I think consent should be. Consent is a flawed metric, but you know what I mean. Like, there's so like even consent is like there's more things than consent from a traditional perspective, but it's like I don't know. But then the trads go way too far with this crap. Like I saw this one trad cath. I think it was a prolific Cole poster who said like, you know, you can't cuddle with your wife or you have to sleep in different beds and you can't cuddling is like unmasculine.
I think the Phoenix has the point here. They want a submissive outlet. The world girl bossing women makes that release all that's the take. There you go. That's the take.
But why drive to such an extreme though with this type of content where it's like clearly vivid descriptions of
because we live in a very sterile, sexless world.
True.
Like,
and but the thing is, these women, they like their real names and faces. Like they have Instagram and TikTok videos that are cross-posted onto their Facebooks with their family members and their real names and faces and LinkedIn pages, but are posting about like books they read that have like
because
vampires violating them.
Because we have neutered male sexuality.
Right, true.
Like,
but...
it's the whole "Hey Susan" meme that everyone posts about, but even the Hawkeye gets reported to human well, not all the time, but
Yeah.
like it does illustrate, like, if you're the current dynamics, you can't flirt in the office, human resources doing all this, like, women have been given unfathomable, and again, this will haunt me one day, but an unfathomable amount of power and leverage over men, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in education, whether it be with reproduction systems. Like, we've given a loaded gun via the pill and birth control to only one sex. I mean, like, men have condoms, but that's totally different in comparison to hormonal birth control, which radically changes and alters their mating choices, their behavior. It fucks with their bodies. And so, like, yeah, we've turned them into an ability where they don't have to have children, that there are no consequences to their actions, they can do no wrong. But the men that would traditionally either A, put them in their place, or B, give them what they want, can't do it anymore. And so, like, I hate to, like, reiterate, like, old red pill talking points, but there's a reason why those guys got popular.
Well, true, but I mean, like, is that... But then again, even like back in the day, was it like there was a lot of horror stories of women that were abused and, like, you know what I mean, that slipped through the cracks of the system. But like normal relations between men and women, is it really like that? Like, come on, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think like the extreme nature of this type of content is because the sort of normal outlets of relations between men and women, especially in the bedroom, like, has been, you know what I mean? Like, I think so it has to sort of like pull towards this extreme, right? Like, I don't know, like, it's just, yeah, this is a very complicated topic. Even the whole, like, the domestic violence thing, like, that the manosphere talks about. I don't know if I should say this in public, but there is a lot of women who are neglected by the system in DV cases, right, Prude? Domestic violence, right? But a lot of that has to do as well with the class and even the racial politics in America.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of these red pill manosphere guys, they will go to the extreme and they'll say, like, women are lying, blah, blah, blah. It's never the case because the cops and the court systems are always against men, blah, blah, blah. But there is a case to be made that, the feminist argument about how women are neglected in the system, there is an argument from that, but it's because of the particular other hot button issues in America as to why these cases aren't as persecuted as they should be. I'm not going to say any more than that, but you know what I'm talking about, Prude, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the racial politics to it, and then alongside of, like,
right.
some weird
there's class
stuff.
things as well too. There's also class things as
well, and then there's some awkward Evo psych to talk about.
Like, here's the thing. Like, I've known men, who have had very incredibly terrible times in the court system, but at the same time, I mean, I'm just gonna start Wholesome Chungus posting about the foids, right?
I'm gonna put on the women respecter fez.
I'm gonna start putting on the women respecter hat. But
I should make a paper hat that says serious hat on it the next time
I should, yeah.
We can put on a serious hat. We can make it a bit.
But I think, like, it is more complicated and than what I think a lot of manosphere people think, because again, that's sort of like a weird counter reaction in terms of rhetoric to, like, the sexual politics, especially of the 2010s and the whole men's rights thing. And you know what I mean? So, like, but now that I've sort of researched a bit more into this than when I was consuming that manosphere content back in the day, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like there are things that do kind of don't make sense in terms of the legal system. And I think you have to, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What were you going to say, Prude?
No, I was just agreeing with you in that respect. I mean, there is nuance to all these things. It's just
no, because the case is there is a lot of women who are abused and who the system doesn't care about, and there's a lot of children especially. I mean, even the children thing.
Oh, I mean, the children end up becoming weapons to just literally just human weapons to levy
Yeah.
against one or the other, which is awful. And I mean, there's more to it. And
no, but even the foster care, okay, it's universally recognized, Prude, that the foster care system is dysfunctional.
Oh, yes.
But you'd figure that such a monstrous system, there would be a political incentive to reform such a system. But in actuality, there are many, many political pressures there, subtly and hidden, that go into why the government-run foster care system is a human misery, intergenerational human misery producing thresher, combine thresher of human souls. So it's like, you know what I mean? Things don't make sense in this world, Prude. Sorry, I cut you off. I don't know.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Because I don't know, maybe I go a bit too far with the women respecting thing. It's just that I think a lot of, especially when it comes to children,
the audience knows it's on brand.
Okay, it's on brand. Yeah,
it's on brand.
But when it comes to children, though, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. And if you read documents like the Finders, you read Ted Gunderson's work. I don't know how much I could say for YouTube, but it's all real. Okay. Like there's a reason why.
There's an unfathomable amount of human trafficking and child abuse that goes on those systems, and then just a lot of like legal fuckery that only does cater to like weird like sex and race specific adoption that gets and I get it. Like I also know that there are genuine people that want to adopt children, and that but I mean
people that can't have children.
But I mean, like foster care does kill kids, and we have a really bad system, and we should reform it. It needs to be better. But it's also. But I mean, Robin V. Mars has got a great point here. It's also hard to convince people to reform a system that's entirely comprised of people who everyone expects to be just ruined forever.
Yeah,
and it's hard to have any compassion. But I mean, not to. I don't care what people think of it. Children deserve a chance.
Yeah,
I don't care what people think. He who causes the little ones to not believe, I'm a millstone futurist. And so, I really do think that the children out of all people deserve the biggest chance, because there is so much impact that childhood trauma, like the libs have some point to it and the right does too. Childhood trauma fucks you for life to a large extent. I mean, we see this range of children of divorce to children's of parents that are never there or work both. We can also talk about like the cortisol levels in children who go to foster or daycare. God knows about foster care. And so it's a disaster. And unfortunately,
but I think like the media depiction of it as well, like people think that people have like Hollywood media brain where they'll see one depiction of like abuse victims or women or children or whatever, and like then that gets taken up in discourse as to like, oh, there's a lot of these services and blah blah blah. But like in reality, like the system really doesn't like victims, because victims cost a lot of money. And not just money, there's not just economic thing, but like people in general, people really don't like sob stories as much as we like to believe that we do. We like vicarious imbibing of sob stories, like, soft white underbelly. We like that. We like Law and Order SVU. But when it comes to like the real world people that we know, we sort of like shy away from it. And I think like on an institutional level, that's also true. People will live vicariously through the sob story of other people. But when it comes to like real world trauma that people have, it's like we tend to shy away from it. There's that weird psychological gap and so then in turn, people create political discourse, either on the left or the right, about victims or whatever of domestic violence, the system, or what have you. So it's just like, you know what I mean? Like it's a weird discontinuity there. Yeah.
And again, the media is always going to create a giant rift between truth and reality. And again, people want to be told how to think and what to feel. That'll always be a problem. But I think we'll probably maybe we should revisit the subject in the future. I think that definitely deserves a further.
I have this argument that like egalitarian feminism, like putting women in the workplace, actually hurt them in this regard, because now they're just treated like individuals.
Well, duh.
And so, this is Derek Jensen talked about it, so yeah.
I mean, like all of a sudden, not only do I have to compete against other well-qualified men, I have to now compete against quote unquote well-qualified women who aren't going to be mothers, who aren't going to be. It's a disaster. We can definitely talk about it further on some episodes.
We'll talk about it soon. Yeah.
But shall we get to the end of the show with the super chats?
Sure. Yeah.
Alrighty. Let me go change my profile picture real quick, and I'll do the little ad copy read. All right. Well, the Digital Archipelago is brought to you by viewers like you. Your ongoing financial support to the Digital Archipelago, both on Geo's Patreon, my Substack, channel membership, Substack, and the rest, along with your ongoing support, makes the show increasingly possible. But today's show is sponsored by our good friend T.R. Hudson and his book, The Perfect and the Wicked, an interesting historical tale in the take of the family of the Kennedys, this time with an excellent twist of historical fiction. And what does it really cost a man to lose his soul if his children and his grandsons can inherit the world around him? The Perfect and the Wicked, available in bookstores near you and on Amazon.com. And now on to the super chats.
All right.
Alrighty. I will start with the entropy one since I can't show those. All right. Belial Bradley for $10 United States. He says, we didn't start the fire. So very true. We did.
$10.
Patrick Casey for $3 US. Thank you so much, good sir.
Thank you, Patrick.
He says, here's the money you asked for. Please release my Cambodian wife and children.
No.
They have been released upon the death of Henry Kissinger. They should be back in your home shortly, Mr. Casey. Hopefully they will be with you to reunite with you during the Gavin Newsom, Ron DeSantis debate.
Can you imagine Patrick Casey with a Cambodian woman? Oh my God.
Can you imagine? Like I would presume a Filipino wife, you know, that way he can like spar with his like teenage Filipino son over like, you know,
well, kickboxing is like the national sport.
Well, I know, right? So, like he could get like ripped with his son and they could like go on tour and fight together.
Oh yeah.
But again, this is just a meme. Don't take this out of context. Daniel Robinson for $3 US says, geopolitics is all kayfabe. Good theory. What if leaders get written off in the story by faking their death? Shinzo Abe's looked fake, and you know, the ambassador to Japan is Rahm Emanuel, and his brother Ari now owns UFC/WWE. I did not know that Rahm Emanuel.
Ari Emanuel owns a sizable chunk of the UFC. Oh, because UFC and WWE, they partnered under the what promotions? What's it called? If someone in the chat knows the parent company of both of them, what is it called? Something Promotions or
William Morris Agency and Endeavor Talent Agency, and he now owns Endeavor, which that owns the UFC and WWE. Look at that!
Whoa,
yeah,
Endeavor,
brother of Rahm Emanuel.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Crazy stuff.
Obinga's what
Master
was
plan.
Emanuel? What was
he was chief of staff for a little bit.
Yeah, he was chief of staff. Yeah, but then he became an Obama czar. Did he? Or no?
He was chief of staff, and then I think he's got a different position. Well, I mean, he had a long, sordid political career, but
what happened to the czar system under Trump? Did that go anywhere?
No idea.
Did Trump have czars?
Well, he had like a border czar or something like that, and he had a pharmaceutical one because he did the whole right to try thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But what happened? Like, what was the creation of the Obama czar thing? Do you just like appoint people to do special tasks? Is that what it was? Or remember, like Cass Sunstein was the czar, one of Obama's czars, or
basically like that. Yeah, it's just people who were there. To carry on, Sam153 for $5 US. He says,
$5.
Geo, make sure that you treat Matt to a Tim Hortons coffee when he gets to Canada.
Of course.
So yeah, I've never been to Canada at all. Actually,
I kind of prefer Dunkin' Donuts when I'm down in the States. So
it's the Dunkin' Donuts coffee is the healthiest thing on Dunkin' Donuts' menu, as I said yesterday. For those who missed it, I did this rather cozy, kind of kitschy stream where I just reviewed various coffee at places like Denny's or Dunkin' Donuts and stuff like that. I enjoyed it. We had some fun travel stories. It was a good time. And then Capitalissimo for $5, who's part of the Sidebar, a great literary book review podcast.
$5.
He says, Prude spent 15 minutes of his coffee stream crawling out of his skin about restaurants, and you're going to make him cover Tom of Finland, the animated series.
What's restaurants?
I'm not a fan of places like Twin Peaks or Hooters or the Tilted Kilt or play. I don't see the appeal. I don't, in the same way I don't get the appeal of strip clubs. It's not my cup of tea.
I went to a strip club once in my life, and it was all right, I guess.
It's just not my it's not my thing. and I'm not. Just I don't get the point. You know.
Yeah,
I
me
would
neither.
I would not want to be in one for a lengthy period of time. But no,
And if you're like, you know,
we're
if you
not
wanted to
covering
goon,
Tom
why
of
would you goon
Finland.
in public? You know what I mean?
We're not doing that. Did you see that like video of some teacher like saying "Don't edge in my class"?
Yes.
Like, oh my god.
Oh my god. These
It's
Gen
the
Alpha
end.
gooners.
It's the end. It's the end.
They're going to the gooners of Gen Alpha are going to inherit the earth. You know, that's scary thought right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, truckers goon all the time when they're down the highway. I mean, that's right, Brent. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be it for the super chats on
Entropy.
on Entropy. If they come back, then
Yeah.
We appreciate it nonetheless. Okay, onwards and upwards. Well, unfortunately, it's not the animated series. It's like a live action television show.
Oh yeah, it's very live action.
Yeah, which we can't show any of it on screen. Thank
Nope,
God.
we cannot.
We
cannot show any of it on screen.
Anyways,
but if you go to YouTube, I believe someone clipped some segments of it. I recall. So, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll carry on here. Daniel Robinson for $1.99 US says, "Prude, have I ever read Dr. Kissinger's magnum opus, Diplomacy?" Yes, I have.
You answered that.
I own all of Kissinger's works.
Is it worth reading Diplomacy?
It's a long book, but yeah, I would think so. I would highly recommend that you know your Chinese history if you're going to read Diplomacy. But I liked his stuff on his White House years. My favorite works of his are Diplomacy, World Order, and his PhD thesis. Daniel Robinson, again, for $4.99 US, says, "You should read the letters between Nixon and Charles de Gaulle around 1968-69. You'll see de Gaulle writing convincingly for Nixon to open dialogue that China is not the Soviet Union." Well, that I did not know. So I'm going to have to go find those letters. Those are exciting.
Well, you know, the Chinese and the French always had this like weird culture diffusion thing going on. The French knew quite a bit about the Chinese. A lot of very famous, even up to this current day, some of the best sinologists come from France, and a lot of Chinese dignitaries know French as well as English. So
interesting.
Yeah, well, one of my favorites is and he's really one of the best. I did my master's thesis when I was in philosophy. He was a backbone of my thesis. If you look at Francois Julian, who was trained in Western philosophy, in particular Heidegger and Hegel, but is also a sinologist who knows fluent Cantonese, and he's very fluent in Taoism and Zen. So his books are quite fascinating, Francois Julian. You know, but of course it's very difficult to translate works from Chinese into French and vice versa. And then of course to translate them into English. So there's a lot of people that do this translation work. But yeah, the Chinese have always been fascinated by French culture and French cuisine and French literature as well. And of course, all the French people, like the radical academics like Jean-Paul Sartre, they were 200% pro-Maoists. Like I believe the student paper that or the academic pop periodical paper, not academic journal, but it's like more of a polemical journal that students used to buy, that was run by Jean-Paul Sartre, was actually, I believe the first edition had Chairman Mao on the cover of it. So
there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Carrying on. Yeah, Spasticus Autisticus was very kind earlier. I just wanted to say thank you again.
Yep.
Thank you. Very kind. So 10 random people can now go see the paywalled gaming streams and the episodes of Stalin's War that come out early. Post Nut Clarity for $50 Canadian. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah. He says, "Thank you, Prude, for the Stalin's War series. I had family who had to flee from Warsaw because of the German bombing. When I heard about the war from my relatives, they had no love for the Germans, but all of the real hate was for the Soviets.
Oh, yeah.
Your series shows why." Yeah, no, and I'll be continuing that series until we go through the entire book. So I know that I know long-running series like that aren't everyone's thing, but you know, we're gonna
one day I'll do the Red Book. One day
we're gonna go through the whole damn thing, guys, and it's a thick boy. So
one day I will get to reviewing the Red Book next year, probably. So
yeah.
Holy crap! What is that? 600 pages?
Well, the text officially ends. The bibliography ends. It's a great question. It's a really great question. When does this book end? 670 pages.
That was a good guess on my part.
Yeah, very good guess. In comparison, I'm reading things like very thin, old, saintly church fathers readings. But thank you, Post Not Clarity. I will continue it. I'm recording tonight, tomorrow, and Monday with some great guests, including Charlemagne and Pete Quinones. So it'll be a good time. Brent Taylor for $4.99 US is also a channel member. Thank you, sir. He says, Geo rate Rancid, the band. I got into punk due to this motocross movie, Crusty Demons of Dirt 3, my only exposure to the scene.
Well, I know AXCX and Seth Putnam hated Rancid, but Rancid, I never listened to much Rancid, but from what I know of the scene at the time, Rancid was sort of like in the category of like Misfits and Biohazard, where like, quote unquote, like elitist punk people, they didn't like them because they were too like mainstream, or they were too close to metal, or they were too close to pop or whatever. But I think like Rancid is sort of seen more with respect nowadays, because then there was bands that came after, like when I was growing up, not when I was growing up, but like when I was a teen, like, older teenager, a band that was comparable to Biohazard would be like Ymir, where like nobody respected if you listened to Ymir because like of whatever, right? But I think Rancid was also in that category. But I mean, I think it still holds up if you listen to it nowadays. Because it's funny how like bands that weren't treated with any respect back in the day, either it was like Misfits or Rancid or Biohazard. I think Misfits was actually treated with more respect. Nowadays, they've sort of come into like a nostalgic renaissance. New metal is also going through this. People, I remember back in the day, nobody respected Limp Bizkit. Even Korn was seen as like, kind of like cringe or whatever. But now, like, everybody loves Limp Bizkit. Even like Zoomers love Limp Bizkit. So there you go. I'm an old head, man. I'm 30 years old. That's technically, old. I'm an old man when it comes to music.
You can embody the 30-year-old boomer meme.
Yeah. Back in my day, nobody respect. I was the only one that loved Limp Bizkit.
There you go. Yeah. Corbin for $20 US says Bagby.
$20.
Yeah, I'm gonna have George Bagby on the channel pretty soon. He's been doing a lot of work to get a old out of print book back up and available called Reconstruction in Alabama, and he's got a really great foreword that you can listen to on his YouTube channel. Highly recommend that you do so. And we're going to talk about Reconstruction, and we're also going to talk about Reconstruction with him on the Old Glory Club as well. So thank you so much, Corbin. Your support's greatly appreciated. You're also one of my strongest soldiers in Pat Casey's Discord. Great fan.
Same as my strongest soldier.
Yeah. Gmal for $19.99. Well, thank you so much, sir. You have no message, but
$19.99.
Your support is greatly appreciated. That means so much. And then Prince of Parma for 350 South African rand. So that's about,
I believe that's $18.
Yeah, but I'm gonna just slice a third off, so maybe like $10.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate that, sir. He says, I did some research on the child care thing as is, and virtually all Western foster care systems have an insane degree of abuse.
Oh, yeah.
This in response to a doctoral thesis suggested that the West should take on an equal amount of third world orphans. It was wild.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Like that's astonishing. That like that anyone would argue that is just when we have so many children that are left behind in our own system in all Western countries, except for a few Scandinavian countries. Man, that's actually demonic in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's it's like homeless.
There's no justifying that.
Yeah. Well, it's like Trudeau, they're homeless people in the streets of Toronto and in Vancouver and elsewhere, but like migrants, that don't deserve to be here. They're not escaping any sort of persecution. They're pure economic migrants. They're brought in by Trudeau and they get shacked up on hotels, and now they have government, sites where they go and they're given stipend. And,
well, I mean, even in America, they kicked out a 94-year-old Korean war veteran.
Yeah. I mean, they did commit a lot of war crimes in Korea, but did you ever watch the GDF video on the Korean War?
We didn't do enough in Korea.
Really, eh? Maybe GDF is a breadtuber. It's just that the anti-Americanism
He's just an anti-American, anti-imperialist, man. Like, I get it. Like, there's some interesting stories in there, but when most of
They
your
did
stuff is
commit a lot of crimes
when your
Korea,
stuff is
though.
basically just saying like, oh man, like the United States and the UK, they fucking suck. And it's just like, okay, I'm pretty sure I can read your politics by the basis of your content. We should know about the fruits.
True. But I mean, they did do a lot of insane stuff in North Korea. Well, I mean, I don't know, but then they were, I don't know,
And then we
they
were pushed back by the
communist.
Chinese, and we didn't respond in kind.
Yeah, true.
I don't know. I don't have this retcon like I hate my country type deal. I don't.
Yeah, I know, but but targeting civilians is like, you know what I mean? Like,
again, this goes back to us talking about Kissinger or anything. Like, civilians get killed in war. That doesn't excuse the evils that has happened. I condemn the death of civilians in wartime.
Right. But I think with Vietnam and Korea, there was a conscious targeting of civilians. I think that's the argument. Like in Vietnam, especially, there were those like redact zones, you know what I mean? Where
but I mean, it was the
enemy.
same thing with like the early days of the Iraq War. You never knew who was going to give you intel and then lure you into an ambush.
Yeah, true. Because like that's what I mean. Like then you have to look at it from the perspective of the average American GI who's put in some possible situation. Not to say like what they did was good. There was a lot of sadistic psychopaths that ended up joining the American military just so they could redact civilians and commit acts of commit war crimes and other things I can't mention. But at the same time, I mean, the average GI was put in an impossible situation with a combatant that. So I don't know, like, did people like GDF go way too far with their analysis? I mean,
I'd have to rewatch it.
Yeah, but his videos in Israel, though, I mean, that like what they're doing is like, that's unjustifiable. But when it comes to Vietnam and Korea, like,
well, really, at this rate, North Korea did win. They have a healthier birth rate than South Korea.
In the end, they won
by a whole standard deviation.
Yeah,
like it's insane. Like they're barely below replacement, whereas
South
Korea is just dying.
Oh yeah.
And that's the case.
See, that's the thing. It's hard to think that. To me, it's hard to think that GDF is a breadtuber because he doesn't go into like gay race communism. He just goes into like he does touch the race thing, but he doesn't go full on into like breadtuber. Like he's more of like the geopolitical and analyst of breadtube. So it's hard for me to put him in the same category as as a Voucher, PhilTube.
I like this a Newsweek article just came out today about the Irish Lives Matter sign being called a hate speech.
Oh God.
So Newsweek says it sparked an American firestorm. This was sent to us in a group chat we're in. So libs of TikTok is called the far right. Far right.
She targets trans people, Prude. She targets trans people. That's the argument. She targets trans people.
So far right, but then we'll just scroll a little further down. Orrin McIntyre is listed in this article.
Really?
He's just called the conservative commentator. He's not far right, despite having people like you and I on.
That one tweet he did today was incredible.
About replacement?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a banger.
Oh, he's going on Millennial.
Yeah, I know.
Whoa.
He was on last year.
Oh, but see, Orrin, he cocked though, right? Orrin. Fuck. I'm sorry, man. Sometimes you gotta just defend your friends. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I will always stand by Orrin. He did both of us a solid, and he's a friend of ours. And really, I mean, for people to say that he cucks or whatever, like, first of all, okay, I understand. Like,
dude works for Glenn Beck. You're only going to be able to act accordingly. But the fact that he can like whisper to boomers that like democracy sucks, and
even Tucker Carlson talks about like immigration and replacement now. Like it's birth rates. I think like birth rates thing. Like it is like I mean. Even if you want to divorce it from the race politics, when you have like rightfully or wrongfully colonialism, whatever, okay, fine. But in terms of world systems, the most productive countries that the majority of the other parts of the world rely on, even for basic things, if you have those populations that are slowly degraded, that don't have the spirit left to even have children, and who are basically having to import and brain drain some of the most, productive and smartest people in the world into the West. That equation is not sustainable. I
No.
don't care if you think that, like, and okay, I will admit, okay, fine, the left, you got us, okay? It's about, like, the European people, okay, fine, you could say that it's racist or whatever. But even just barring the race thing, it's kind of a fucked up system that you have this IQ shredder that relies on, like, third world brain drain of people that could help those countries if they stayed there. And because in the West, we refuse to have children, or the conditions by which we can have children become increasingly abstract and almost impossible by the day. That system eventually is going to collapse. Now, unless you have, like, the Chinese and the Indians picking up the slack. But it's like, in terms of Western development shedding off to the rest of the world, and in terms of the way that China and India treat their own populations, and in terms of the fact that the Chinese probably don't have those same belief systems and ethical bents that compels the West to do this, like, humanitarian, we are the world global airport thing. It's like, it's kind of like a system that's designed to fail. So you could say it's like white nationalist or it's racist or whatever, but the demographic thing is an issue, even just for the rest of the world, okay? When we are gone, the deluge will come. I'm sorry, but that's just the reality of it. Same with technology. This is why I don't buy the accelerationist thing. Because in terms of resources being outpaced by technological development or the destruction of resources, that's a real concern. And as much as people countersignal the whole, like, environmentalism thing and the Ted Kaczynski, blah, 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 deacceleration, it's like, those are a real issue.
Tucker Carlson was just talking about Ted Kaczynski today.
Oh, yeah? That's who was?
He was on, I forget that Roseanne Barr has a podcast and she's been canceled.
That's right.
But, he was saying that, like, Ted Kaczynski is one of the most influential people he's read lately.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, Prudy. Even if it is a racist dog whistle, it's like, it's still, if the West falls.
Well, I mean, like, it's the same thing where people say the competency crisis is a racist dog whistle. Right. At a certain point, you can call me racist, but it's the classic, like, you can call me whatever, but I ain't a liar, whatever deal. Right, that's what this is. I ain't a liar. Sorry. Like, there are obvious, barefaced, naked truths that exist right now that tell us the plain old obvious. And the obvious right here and right now is that the civilization that you once knew is gone. And that the world that we know is under
will be affected.
And when you replace the demographics, replace the identity, replace the culture, nothing of what there is no ship at Thucydides moment here. It's all gone. Yeah. It's all gone.
Yeah.
And it will not come back.
And you can use the argument of colonialism and all, and how we rob the world of what, okay, fine.
Cool. So racial resentment. I don't care.
Yeah. No, but in terms of the here and now, a lot of these countries throughout the world rely on the West for a variety of reasons. Not just materially rely on the West. And so it's like, when we fall, it's like, it's like the world's going to go with us. Because I don't think the Chinese are very pure in their intentions to do this whole, like, we are the heckin' wholesome third worldist, BRIC nations. Call me skeptical. I don't think the Chinese Communist Party have the best intentions in mind for people in Africa and in India. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Like, it's not that we had the best intentions in mind, but I'm just saying, like, because you have to separate the actions of our governments from the actual people that live in these countries in the West.
And additionally, which civilization will survive? Like, the issue is that, like, the leftism of progressive internationalism of the Western governments is suicidal ideation on a massive scale.
Oh, definitely.
Whereas, like, and this is a point where I've heard a lot of, like, Sinophilic people in the West say, like, at the end of the day, China will still be ethnically and culturally Chinese.
Yeah.
Whereas here...
Remember what Lee Kuan Yew said back in the 60s?
Yeah.
He said, people like me and people like you will still be here 1,000 years from now, and I will make sure of it. And it's like...
Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Lee Kuan Yew, he knew. Okay, like,
again, one of the most important statesman thinkers of the 20th century that should be studied more, because what a hell of an example he made. Oh, yeah. But Gio, as we get to the third hour, where the hell can people find you? What content have you put out? What are you doing?
Janet Productions on YouTube. I just came out with a Meta Prime episode. We talk about many things we actually do talk about Elon. We recorded it a few months ago. We talk about Silicon Valley and spirituality. We talk about a lot of discussion about the possibilities of AI. And so, yeah, the content-minded episode 54. I'm still writing. I'm almost done writing the actual core of the book. Then I'll have to edit it together, then send it off to get edited, and hopefully early next year, maybe by the spring, it'll come out. So, I really have been neglecting a lot of other things. I still have to put up all the episodes of Digital Archipelago on my Spotify. But yeah, all the links are there. You can donate one-time donation through PayPal or buy me a coffee. But of course, go to my Patreon where you'll get the full 3-hour episode of the Meta Prime episode, including all the other digital content-minded episodes and extras. And I will eventually start releasing chapters of my book as well on Patreon and on Substack.
All right.
They're the same. And also, so I would also recommend just subscribe to my Substack anyways, because you can switch over to the paid version. I upload both the paid and free versions on audio file. And of course, you go to Spotify podcast and all the free versions are there as well. Yeah.
Well, your links are down below in the description. Prince of Parma for 35 South African Rand. Thank you for the $1. Kenyan pastor told me that they would rather return to British colonialism than be ruled by Chinese debt slavery from China. One was infinitely more humane than the other. That is for certain.
That is true.
And John Carter for $4.99 US says, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't have the best intentions for the Indians. I'm downloading TikTok right now. Well, we'll see. When TikTok starts doing like public sanitation TikTok videos for India, then we know
with
that
AI videos of the
with
UN.
some weird psyop shit starts happening.
Yeah.
But Langdon Industry says he wants the full book, so it'll be out soon, hopefully, right? You have a deadline? You have a deadline?
Not really. It's not a hard and fast. I should have been done like back in the spring, but the autumn. But I didn't anticipate how big it would be and like how long it would take me to write. And I thought it was going to be like 280 to 300 pages, but now it's shaping up to be over 400 pages. So, I mean, I'm sure like he'll want to cut some stuff, but we'll see what happens, So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. I don't know if we're gonna do the.
What about your project, Prude? I thought you were gonna write a book.
I've got some stuff in the works.
Collection of essays,
some essays and some short stories. I'm submitting something to the Double Dealer magazine, so I'm trying my hand at fiction again. And then I have an interview with a gentleman named Chuang Wen. He
Yeah, that's I gotta watch that one. Yeah.
It's all, you can check it out on the community tab. I put it out on Telegram. I'll post it also. I've also restacked it on Substack as well. We talked about Joe Sobran. We talked about Israel. We talked about the state of the American right and paleoconservatism. It's a really good jam-packed hour. It was a good talk. I was really surprised at how well it went. Additionally, I'll be on with our good friend Andrew Isker, 8th Century Woodchipper, and CJ Engel on their podcast tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So nice. Friday morning is going to be really busy for me. And then tonight, tomorrow, and Monday, I'm recording with Nicholas Sorokin. I'm recording with Charlemagne and recording with Pete Quinones on my series of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Stalin's War.
So you'll see those episodes early. If you're a subscriber on Substack or channel member or patron on Subscribestar, you'll have a great time with that respect. And then,
nice.
Yeah, lots of good stuff coming in the works. And then I'll have some longer essays as well. And my article on the issue that happened in Dublin with the riots was also reposted to Gab News. So it was a really great time.
Nice. Highlight John Carter's message here. Listen, John Carter, listen. You gotta help me. You gotta help me out, okay? I was promised $300 if I review The Shunning, which is apparently some Mormon erotica book. So he's saying right now that he's.
I thought it would have been called The Soaking.
The Soaking. He's saying right now that he's not going to pay up until I finish my book. So when I hand him my draft, how about that? Not when it comes up. When I hand him the draft, how about you? I will do the review when I have time. John Carter.
There you go.
Look at sorry, Gio. I spent all my Gibbs Stop Zionist hate.
Oh, Lord. And one last super chat from Owen Zaleski, $3 US. Hello, gents. Got a flat tire today, but I'm still going strong. I hope you were all well. Working on a double dealer and a passage prize, art and writing. Are you guys going to be writing anything or drawing? I will be writing an essay for a non-fiction piece for the not the double dealer, but for passage prize.
I might write an essay.
I will submit something, and I'm also submitting something for the double dealer. So
what's the theme of the passage prize? This number 3?
Survival tactics. Let me look it up real quick. Passage
I might
prize.
do that. I wouldn't want to. Well, first of all, I have been lagging in artwork, but
yeah, survivalist guide to the current year.
Oh, nice. I wouldn't want to submit in the visual art category because I mean, it would just be like, it would just bias the whole thing because Matthew is like one of my best friends. So I don't know if I could get around that. You know what I mean? It's just there's an ethical concern. That's why I haven't submitted, because like Fenn did number 2, Passage Prize 2, and now Stout's doing 3. It's like, plus I don't know. I don't have something I've made really well because there's a lot of conceptual paintings that I want to do in woodcuts, but I just haven't had the time. So maybe Passage Prize 4, depending on who they have.
So there you go. And I mean, plus, you could always try your hand at writing.
Yeah.
But all right, well, we will see you all next week on the Digital Archipelago. I'll be busy and live and recording stuff, so will Geo. And until then, we will see you guys next week. God bless.
Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, Jen.